Hello, my name's Benjamin Yoder, and I love video games. Maybe to the point that some people might say it's almost a toxically positive kind of way. I would say it's mostly trying to be respectful, trying to give as much consideration to a game as much as possible. But I sometimes struggle with that, and there's definitely games like Super Mario Bros. 3, Nier Automata, and things like that despite my best efforts, sometimes I still am a little weirdly testy about them. And Final Fantasy XIV is definitely one of those. And it's weird because I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. And I have a history with Final Fantasy XI. And I actually did originally like Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. And interestingly enough, coming back to it, I actually did like 2.0 as well. And the reason I say that is if you're not familiar, ever since Final Fantasy XIV has relaunched, it's been kind of a downward trend for me, my feelings about Final Fantasy XIV. And I've tried for years, over a decade now, to kind of like sit down and try to kind of appreciate the game better. And every time I do it, it just seems like it bounces off me. I don't think this is an unresolvable situation, though. I think it is more of the ways I've approached the game in the past has been ineffective. And so I am kind of finally taking the time to just try to give it the best shot I can. Give it the full time and accommodation that I can to try to figure out my feelings and hopefully get Final Fantasy XIV to a point in my life where it is, if not a positive experience, at least something I can respect. So to help me with that today, I invited Alex Fraioli on. If you listen to my past podcast, you'll know Alex came on to talk about why he liked Final Fantasy XIV in the past. He also has a video that he more recently put out called, was it Rockstars and Relics? Relics and Rockstars, and appreciating Final Fantasy 11 and 14. I'm getting the name all messed up, but I'll have a link here, and then at the end of the video as well, there'll be a link as well. It's like a 45-minute video, and if you want to know where he's kind of stands with Final Fantasy 11 and 14, I think that's a really good video to kind of sum up his thoughts and things like that. But the goal of today's show, though, is not necessarily to solve any problems. I will say, in my personal opinion, after this, I would say very little was solved. But it was basically an attempt to kind of like set a baseline. I went back and reviewed a bunch of old like podcasts and articles that have been about Final Fantasy XIV. And I also played like a 48-hour free trial period where I kind of like touched base with it again and just kind of try to get a feel for what was going on, what I don't like, very little what I do like, unfortunately, but a lot of what I don't like, and just kind of like get a state of the situation, basically. And so today is mostly me telling Alex and telling you kind of my feelings about Final Fantasy XIV, and in a way that I would say generally most of I think is not sound, personally. I think a lot of it's a very like an emotional response about Final Fantasy XIV for whatever reason, personal issues, or just maybe there's something about the game that doesn't actually align with my personal game values. I just would be very surprised if the latter was the case, because I have a lot of flexibility when it comes to video games. So anyways, it's basically a full podcast. I don't know if the future episodes will be full podcasts, but give it a listen. I'd be curious to know what you think. If you have any suggestions on like better ways to approach Final Fantasy XIV for me, feel free to leave them in the comments after this as well. I would love it. Any information and input would be super helpful. So yeah, essentially, you are going to be, I think in some ways, maybe like my Final Fantasy XIV therapist.
Oh boy.
I don't know for sure. That's how this is going to work out.
I am here to help.
But I want to tell you about a lot of things I feel about Final Fantasy XIV. I don't know how much I've like really directed this at you or not, versus just kind of like dropped bits and pieces here and there as we've kind of talked. But I want to be very clear as I say this. The reason I'm talking to you this about like these things is because I actively think I look at the game in a bad way. Or I actively think I think about the game in a bad way. It's way better. And so I think what happens is I have like this very weird emotional like dislike of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
And then I take a lot of logic and start applying that to that dislike. But none of it ever sticks in a way that I feel is true. So there's going to be a lot of times I'm going to make statements during the show that I think are very likely not going to be true statements. They're going to be statements that I think are true, but are
Okay.
likely not real.
Okay.
An example of this recently is, oh God, I had an example, then I forgot about it. You know, Grand Blue Fantasy, the mobile
Yeah.
game? So I played the fighting game version of that. And there's
Oh
something
yeah.
about the characters in that game that really bother me. I don't know what it
Really?
is. It's
Okay.
just, it annoys me. So I always say the character design, I don't like the character design. And I would always use that line. But when I recently went and like compared those characters to like Tails characters, you know, like the thing where like people like have like a drawing board with like the yarn between it to show like the connecting
Oh yeah.
points. I kind of did that, but like I highlighted each body part of a character and was like, what do I like and don't like about this?
Oh God.
And it's no different than any other anime thing. It evens out. Like all the Tails games look the same. So I don't dislike these characters, but my brain told me that for like a year that is what I don't like. So
Yeah.
I have not come to a conclusion about that, but I just want to let you know, if you ever feel like you should question a statement I make, always feel good to do that. Um, but yeah, and so basically, I would say I feel what might be considered like an emotional. I kind of wrestle with like hate being a too strong of a word with Final Fantasy 14. I at least hate how I look at 14.
Yeah.
Um, And I was recently going back and listening to some of the old stuff. And over the years, I've been trying to play Final Fantasy 14 basically since 2.0 launch. I mean, I played 1.0, but since 2.0 launch. And I just kind of like listened to myself talk about this game over this like 10-year period, basically. And every time it seems to get progressively more aggressive and worse, if that makes sense. Um,
I think it does.
So, one thing you've mentioned on your podcast recently, I don't know if this came up in your video or not, but you mentioned about like the idea of like something being taken away. And this was my theory initially because I think when I originally played 2.0, there's a lot of things I complained about, and then I would use Final Fantasy 11 as reference. So I'd complain about this being different from Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah.
But there are two things about how I operate as someone who plays video games. One relates to Final Fantasy and one about gaming as general. Like what I think is really exciting about Final Fantasy is they're never the same.
Yeah.
There's a lot of franchises I've fallen off of because I feel like they just don't change enough for me to look at them very often. So like maybe 20 years, check back in 15, 20 years, something be
Yep.
different. But Final Fantasy is different every time. And I think that's really cool. Um, and then also when it comes to games, I appreciate games that challenge my expectations, like what a game can't be. Um, but obviously Final Fantasy 11, having played that for so long, is a very direct experience with like, you know, formative experience. Maybe it's like in a different space with that. Um, so in playing Horizon 11 recently, like the rollback server stuff, I became really confident about my feelings about 11. And so I
Hmm.
thought in revisiting 14 again, that would dissipate those like emotions,
Okay.
but it did not. If anything, it felt like it was even worse than before.
Oh dear.
So my main goal with talking with you, and this might not happen today, I don't know. I don't think it will happen today, is that like I want to like show respect to Final Fantasy 14
Hmm.
and the people who made it and the people who play it.
Okay.
Those are my three things. And so there's different ways that can usually turn out. One, because this is like a problem I've dealt with other things and I've kind of worked through them separately. So this is like one of my, these are the most frustrating games for me to work with. Is at the end, I hopefully enjoy Final Fantasy 14 for what it is.
Hmm.
And then I can communicate why I like it. Um, or I don't enjoy it, but I can communicate why I think most people like it. Those are two very important things for me. Um, and that is why like I can't let this game go because there's always the why don't you
Yep.
just leave it alone? But
Yeah.
like for me as somebody who communicates about games and generally communicates in a way that's like very considerate to the vision of the game, it's
Yes.
weird that games like this, like I have like 5 games like this that stand out to me as like no, I'm going to suffocate Final Fantasy 14 kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think it's important to identify that it is its own separate thing
mhm.
and should not, if you can help it, should not necessarily be compared to 11 all that much. I actually talked to my good friend Ray about you specifically on
Me.
our. It's only because we were recording our bonus show. We do a little bonus show called
Mhm.
Sassafras, and I think I was just talking to you on Blue Sky about this, and
Yeah.
I think I compared it to it's like watching a friend go into about once a month. I watch you walk into a Lebanese restaurant and try to order Greek food.
Yeah.
And then the waiter has to be like, "Sir, we don't serve Greek food." And then you turn the menu upside down and you say, "How about now?" And it's just
That
they're
is a
never
lot of how I process games is I like sit there and try to reframe it over and over
yeah.
again, basically.
And I think no matter how you look at this menu, it's not going to serve the kind of thing you like. The only recourse is try to develop a taste for Lebanese food. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
So yeah, I think in my opinion that probably can't happen.
Yeah.
Just knowing how I've kind of changed in the past with stuff. I also something I haven't talked about much because I have that nightmarish Final Fantasy XI video that's like 40 pages long now that I'll probably never finish.
Oh
I
dear.
dream that I'll finish. Is like I think my understanding of Final Fantasy XI Horizon changed it substantially.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of things about Final Fantasy XI that I actually did not like at the time
Yeah.
that I'm learning that I like now. But that's kind of a whole other topic.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's in some ways I kind of am playing my best life with Final Fantasy XI right now versus
Yeah.
when I was younger. I think it was not going well. Maybe in the way that you said, if you want Lebanese food or you don't want Lebanese food, that was kind of like how I approached 11. Like, hey man, what if I was a paladin with hand-to-hand combat? And it's like that doesn't work. But when
I
I was a kid, that's what I wanted
yeah.
it to work. So um, but yeah, so I think that's like kind of my thesis of just like I want to be at the point where I don't have to like it, but I want to respect it.
Yeah.
Um, One thing I will actually add in here though, because like I said, I played Horizon 11. I feel pretty confident that I like Horizon 11 and Final Fantasy 11 as it was for what it is, and it just needs to exist at that. I don't think I need any more of that. Final Fantasy 11's there in that way for me. Even if they shut down those servers like Square Enix cease and desist them, I'm okay at this
Yeah.
point. There is one weird little in between here, and I don't know like how many other people in the world are like this with me or like this like I am. Is Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 is a game I very much respected in a lot of different ways. Um, and so there may still be something in line with Final Fantasy 14. Did I say 11 1.0? I meant 14 1.0 if I said 11. 14 1.0. There may still be something there being like, this is worse than that thing for how I look at games.
Okay.
Um, One theory I have about this, and this is like giving myself the most pessimistic, like, Ben is a shitty person kind of thought process in this. I
Oh
don't think
no.
this is true, but I'm giving my like I push on myself really hard with this stuff, but I don't think this is true. Just to be clear, is that one thing I really hate about like where Final Fantasy 14 went is when when Yoshida said 14, like someone asked about like classic server for 14, and he jokingly said nightmare, and I think that's fine for him,
Yes.
but one of the challenges I have is when I talk about 14 now, 1.0 and Liking 1.0, the very first thing that comes up is Nightmare.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like, hey, here's this thing I value about this game. And then it's just like, well, the director thinks this was trash. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Oh, okay. See,
Like, so
I
I don't know if I'm being like in some way spiteful and saying, well, if you don't appreciate my version of 14, I won't appreciate yours.
I read that completely differently. I took that to mean logistically it would be a nightmare to set up separate servers for 1.0.
I
On the
think
on the tech side, it would
Yoshida
just not be feasible.
I think Yoshida feels that way. I think the
Okay.
problem is it got repurposed into 1.0 as a
Oh,
nightmare.
I
So I
see.
don't actually blame Yoshida for saying it. I think it
Yeah.
is the way people interpreted it is different
Yeah.
than how he said it. Um, so anyways, that's my other point that I was worried about that might be causing me to like have some weird emotional reaction to 14 that's not real. I
Yeah.
don't think that's true. But if I'm being as hard as I can possible on me, it could be that I'm like doing it out of spite, but I don't think that's true
Okay.
personally. So
I think real quick, I think this is important to get out of the way before we go any further.
yeah,
What do you do? What is the extent of your play in FF11? Are you doing endgame stuff or are you just chilling and leveling and crafting? Because I think that is very important in playing into all of this.
Yeah, so in Final Fantasy XI, right now I am very much at a point where I am just leveling and crafting. Um, I started doing a little bit of end game, but I didn't enjoy having to dedicate large chunks of my weekend
Hmm.
to being on for people, basically. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't like having to sit there and say, I'm not going to be there Saturday. Here's my like teacher's note, doctor's note of why I'm
Yeah.
not going to be here. I'm like, I don't, this is not how I want to play this game.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I found through playing Horizon is I think I actually don't like 75 era 11 very much.
Okay.
I think what I like is level 1 through 50, 11,
Okay.
where you have these very dynamic jobs that can do a lot of different things, and you can play them in all these different ways. And I feel like from what I learned through Horizon is that I think there was a deliberate decision made during Rise of the Zillart to make jobs a little bit more standardized after a certain point. And so the way you play your job is a lot more narrowed in. I don't know how true this is, but this is my feeling as like it seems like the your abilities to like use marksmanship on like Dark Knight with like an E rank are a lot better before 50 than when you get up to like 60. It seems like it's saying, "Hey, stop using this." Basically, is what it feels like it's trying to
Wow.
say. Um, and I do know there's like some weird stuff with how skills are calculated beyond a certain level that is made to kind of do different calculations at higher levels. So, anyways, that was a long answer. Did that give you the response
Wow.
you're looking for?
Kind of. Yeah, it sounds like you want a level 50 cap server, which
Well, what's funny though, if you don't
yeah.
mind me, let me go down here in my notes and tell you about what I appreciate about Final Fantasy 14
Okay.
because I think something I realized about this as well. Sorry, 1.0.
Right, okay.
And just to be clear, I have a separation between 1.0 and like 1.23, which was like the pre-shutdown
Oh,
14.
wow. Okay.
The 1.23 is when Yoshida was in charge, and they made a lot of changes that kind of lead into what 2.0 would be.
Yeah.
And I think there's good and bad changes to that. I think 1.23 is very much more Final Fantasy 11 aligned than 1.0 was.
Hmm.
But one thing I think was really cool about 1.0 is I felt like there was a lot of just like weird design decisions. And a lot of these seem to be like rethinking what an MMO could be, almost like if it's 2000. And I think the thing that people say all the time is like, Final Fantasy 14 was built like a early 2000s MMO. But I think what came with that is it feels like there's a genuine curiosity of like what a MMO can be. Like I think I've talked to you before about like the idea that's like there's the market was supposed to be like this weird farmers market style system.
Oh,
The
yeah.
combat was this thing where you would like customize your combos, and I don't remember for sure. I'm trying to remember because some of this stuff I think came from interviews, so it's hard for me to remember like what was actually in the version of 1.0 I played because I played the beta primarily. I didn't have a strong enough PC myself, so I had to play at my friend's house basically. Um, and like I think the intent was is that if you used one combination of skills too much, the enemy would learn and they would be more likely to dodge it and things like that. So
Okay.
you had like 3 or 4 different types of slashes on sword, and then you had your other abilities and things like that as well. Um, and I thought the job system being very flexible kind of helped with the issue that I had in like late game Final Fantasy 11 where there's no you kind of are stuck with certain sub jobs. Like because of societal social pressure the man is telling you to sub ninja. But you know the social pressure is like you need to if you're going to play this job you need to have this particular sub job and there's like
Oh, yeah.
no
I'm
exploration. And
I'm
so I
very
think
familiar with that
1.0 did that.
because I'm very familiar with that because when I started, I started as a monk and
Mhm.
I wanted to unlock samurai in 11 as fast as possible, and I did. Had not leveled warrior yet, so I just subbed a monk in all these experience parties, and everyone's like, "We can't invite you. You need a
Yeah,
warrior
stop
sub."
that.
I'm like, "But it's a melee sub. Who cares?" Like, "No, you gotta be warrior, man." Like, "All
Yeah,
right."
yeah. So I think 1.0 in a lot of ways reflects that like very early Final Fantasy 11 for me of like and I don't how much of this was like real in the final game is kind of another thing, but I think that's what it like represents to me at the very least is like freedom to do a lot of different things with your character. And also I think they kind of were shifting more towards like small party play. Where they wanted you to be able to have a flexible party rather than just have 6 or 18. Um So, do you have any questions about 1.0 stuff specifically? I don't know how much I've talked to you about 1.0 that much, but
No, this is interesting for me because I know next to nothing about 1.0. My friend Smoo, who was in the FF11 beta, was also in the FF14 beta, and then went on to play 1.0. So I've talked with him briefly about it, but I have no firsthand experience. I know nothing about it. So
and I will
this is
say
fascinating to me.
a weird little quirk of mine is that, like, in a lot of ways, and this might be important for like making sure we get on the right track with 14, is usually what I'm looking for in the game is like a communication of like a set of values, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Sure.
So like in some ways a game doesn't have to amount to what it is as long as it does enough to try to be what it is.
Okay.
And if it feels like when I play it I can feel what that is, then I get that. But I don't really feel like I played enough 1.0 to say if it ever felt that way. Because I
Okay.
basically had like maybe 48 hours to sit down and play the beta, basically, and that was about it. So a lot of this I feel like comes from messaging that came from the team at the time. So like the 1.0 propaganda, basically. I did play a lot of 1.22 and 1.23 specifically. Um, I'm trying to think if I want to go into this or not. I feel like I've been talking a lot right now. Is this interesting to you? Do you want to hear more about
I mean,
1.0 or are you good
yeah,
on
because
that?
this is a big blind spot for me where all these games are concerned.
Okay. Um, for 1.22, this is like the one where Yoshida was in charge and basically they had already announced we're relaunching this thing, but hey guys, we'll try to keep a video game running for you guys for now. Um, they basically changed a lot of the combat. I think it's a lot more in line with what Final Fantasy XI was. But the difference was is that instead of like just doing your one weapon skill in Final Fantasy XI, there's like a combination of skills you'd use, and it's very similar to what eventually would come 2.0's like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. But imagine 1 2 3 as a weapon skill rather than like what your auto attack is. Your the regular hits you're doing are still the primary form of damage you were doing at the end of the day. Um, but when they introduced jobs, they started to restrict what abilities you could have, and they made the jobs so powerful that there was like no reason to use the original classes anymore, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and um, I don't remember if this is true of base 1.0, but one weird quirk that I really like, and this is like where maybe 2.0 might rub me wrong on a story reason, but it won't bother me at the end of the day. I don't think it's a real reason to be upset at the game. Is one thing I really like about 11 is this idea that you are an adventurer and nothing special. 11 loses this at some point, to be very clear.
Yeah.
Even in Chains of Promathia, which is pretty early on, you start becoming this thing called the Vessel of Light, which I'm just
Oh
like,
yeah.
whatever. But when you are just the adventurer, I like that a lot. And one thing that was fun in 1.2 is that you had this other person, a creative character that you made, and they were kind of the main character from the story. So
Oh
you were kind of like following this other person go through the story. And I think lore wise, they all died in when they relaunched the server from the
yeah.
meteor falling. But I did really enjoy having what is essentially like a separate NPC that was kind of the primary person. And then
Yeah.
you were kind of just there along with it.
That's an
Um,
interesting concept.
yeah, I
I don't
recently
hate
played
that.
White Knight Chronicles, and it had a similar thing, but it seemed like more of like they made a creative character, but they made a JRPG first, and so
Yeah.
your creative character is just like the main character's coworker, and
Oh,
just
great.
nothing ever happens with you. Nobody addresses you. You were just
Uh,
standing in the background the whole time, and I really kind of appreciate it, even though I know it was just like a we made this decision too late in the development process, but it was
great.
pretty silly. So yeah, I think with like 1.2, and I think they kind of kept the like small party play stuff in mind, but they started kind of pulling back on the customization aspect. The combat system was just like, I mean, I like Final Fantasy XI's combat system, so I didn't dislike it, but I don't think it really represented the original combat system that I was like excited to explore more, kind of thing. So um, that was 1.0 time.
All right. Pretty good.
So I have some I have a few different ways we can go here. I'd be curious to know if you have any preference on this. I have, I think, questions for you. I have a list of past statements I've made about 14 2.0 and beyond.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and then also I have what I did on my last time I returned, which was like the free trial that recently happened, and I spent like 48 hours kind of playing the game. Not the whole time, but
Yeah.
just when I had leisure time, I would sit down and play 14 for a bit. Um, So I didn't know if any of those sounded more appealing or would be more informative to you in terms of like where I'm at with 14 at this point.
Why don't we kick it off with statements you've made about FF14 in the past
All right.
for
So I
500?
don't think I don't just to reiterate kind of what I said earlier, these are statements I've made. They do not necessarily mean that these are true statements.
All right.
But I was going back and reading old articles, listening to old podcasts. Um, the first statement here is when I play Final Fantasy XIV, I don't understand what the fun is.
It's so
Nothing
broad. Oh, you're not
nothing
done.
feels meaningful whatsoever. Nothing responds to me. I just follow the pattern. I do not see any tension in its gameplay or its world. I have no context for what good performance is. This was in the reference to damage numbers and damage
Hmm.
mitigation.
Okay.
One thing I kind of said along with this is that like one of the benefits that like 11 and other games have that I've played is that I have played those games long enough that I know what a good damage number is. Where 14,
Yeah.
I've been so off and on with it, I have no idea what damage is good or not. Also, I kind of prefer games that have lower damage numbers than higher ones. I think once numbers get too big, my brain just kind of turns off.
Yeah,
Um,
they've already had to scale back. They already did that once with 14 a couple years ago, and we'll probably have to do it again at some point.
I don't feel like my damage numbers were too high this last time I played. I think it was like 400 or something like that. I don't know. It didn't seem crazy. Um, kind of related to the nothing feels meaningful thing. I don't know when, where, or why I should take action. Um, so that's more related to the gameplay, and then I have some stuff about story here as well. Which is this was when late 2.0. So this was probably around the time that like 2.5 had come out. I said, I want to know where the story goes, and that's why I played the game. But then when I hit 3.0, my statement was the main story is fine, but I like the smaller stories about individuals in the hamlets. And that seemed to be kind of like where I left off before I just kind of like checked out Final Fantasy 14 story at this
Oh,
point.
yeah.
I will say, um, I am not invested in 14 story right now.
Hmm.
And that's not a fault of the game or anything like that. That's just me 10 years being in Heaven's Word and trying it for like,
Yeah.
5 to 10 hours at a time and just like I have no idea what's happening anymore basically.
Yeah.
Um I said in 2.0 I had a appreciation for the density of its world. So I think a lot of 2.0 areas have a lot of very like it feels like very specific design decisions that seem to kind of like have these very visually at least uh distinct things that you're looking at. I feel like it's kind of like Breath of the Wild where you look in like different directions. In every direction, there's kind of something.
Yeah.
And then instead in 3.0, I said, I didn't put it here, but I'm pretty sure I said that the areas feel like they're just really big and empty. And then I also said in 3.0 that I feel like I have no reason to return to the 2.0 areas, um, which I have heard that complaint about 14, where
Yeah,
it's like
that's
it is
kind of
basically
true.
you finish the area and then there's no reason to go back unless you're doing like a hunting log or something like that, which
Yeah.
hunt other things. So, so I think that's like emotional statements that I'm like applying logic to with that
Okay.
basically. So,
Sure. I think
um,
regarding the story, it is. I don't envy Yoshi P for having to have done all that because from what I know about the 1.0 story and certainly the 2.0 story, it is not great. It is kind of bog standard. You're the hero. These are the bad guys. Look how nefarious they are.
mhm,
What's their motivation? It's mwahaha. That's what it is. It's they
mhm,
just want to resurrect their dark god. It's very like children's anime bog standard nothingness. And he and the team had the responsibility of turning that into something interesting. And they ultimately did, but oh boy, does it take a while to get there. Like you said, and everyone, like nobody disagrees with this. 2.0 is a slog narratively. Heaven's Ward starts to open it up and introduce more interesting characters and places. Even that's a little slow getting off the ground. Once it kicks in, it's great. And from then on, I think it's all very enjoyable. But that is about the point where you have to just power through it until cool plot stuff starts. And like they do link it up and it all pays off and it's all worthwhile. But and I hate to I can't recommend something. If somebody tells me like, "Oh yeah, it gets really good in season 4." I'm not watching it.
I did want
If
to
someone
ask you
recommends a
about that
show.
because, like, when I made that Blue Sky thread, you had mentioned you have to eat your vegetables before you play.
Yeah.
Um, And I'm curious if there's like other games or other media where you felt like that was acceptable or unacceptable, and why you think in the case of 14 you view that as more acceptable or not.
I think it's more acceptable the more fun you're having with the gameplay loop and the flow of the experience.
Mhm.
Like Final Fantasy Tactics, for example. Like when I was in high school, I did not get the story at all. It went completely over my head, but I kept playing because I liked the battles. And then about halfway through the game, I was like, "Oh, the story's cool now."
Yeah, yeah.
And I wasn't sticking with the game because of the story, but I'm glad I was still playing it because then I realized, oh, this is worthwhile. I guess I'll keep going with it. And I feel like 14's story was the same way for me, where I skipped every cutscene until halfway through Heaven's Ward, mostly because I was playing drunk off my face and I just wanted to mash buttons.
Yeah.
But I skipped so much of the story, and then once I got to a part of the story that was interesting, I went back and rewatched old cutscenes like, "Oh, right. Oh, that did happen. Oh, yeah, this is cool, I guess." But I wasn't invested yet because just nothing was happening other than mash buttons.
I'm probably at the point where you were drunk. So so I think that's like very positive to hear that, like, even though right now I'm completely I don't have a problem with the 14th story. I just not connected to it, right?
Yeah.
So like when I see scenes where like there's like a scene where like Yestola was gone for some reason. I think it was like
Yeah.
at the end of 2.5 she did something to like basically like throw herself in the live stream or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it kind of feels like, and I assume this wouldn't be as apparent if I was like invested in the story, but they kind of just go like, hey, this Tara is her name, the pink Tar
Tataru?
girl.
Yeah.
She's heard that Yostola's in the live stream, and they go to like Gridania, and they're just like, "Oh, well, yeah, we could get her out of there." And then they get her sister, and then she's just back. It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing to do. There's no tension.
I
It's just we didn't put the pieces together, and that's why
so
she isn't back, kind of thing.
yeah,
But I think
exactly.
that doesn't look as apparent if you're invested in the narrative, you're kind of following the story versus
It's
me just kind of
yeah.
showing back up and being like, "What?"
Well,
So,
it's also a symptom of, like when we binge TV shows, a lot of older shows are not designed that way. There's supposed to be a week between an episode's cliffhanger and how it resolves. I think that
yeah.
was a case of there were probably months between this happening and her coming back, and maybe don't lead with her coming back immediately when that new patch comes out. Maybe give it a little more time, but that happens a lot in that game where there will be a
Mm.
problem, and then if you're catching up on old quests, it's just immediately resolved, and you're like, well, there was no tension there. There
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was once, and now it's gone, and we can't have it back because we're
There's no
shotgunning
breathing
these
room left,
quests.
basically. It's like
Yeah.
that just it just sucks all the oxygen out in between. Because yeah, I think something that I think the big thing, because this is still in the main Heavensward story, I don't think I've gone past that. I think it'd probably be pretty clear if I finish the main expansion, right? I think they do they do like a late title card or something like that, or like ending
Yes.
credits or
Yeah,
anything
there's
like
one
that?
of
Okay.
those.
So I haven't hit anything like that right now. So I think I'm still in the expansion, but she disappeared at the end of 2.5, and I don't know how much time would be between that and the expansion coming out. So
Yeah.
I assume that's when she disappeared.
I don't
But
know. Yeah, I started with Stormblood, so I don't know. That whole era, I ran through it quickly.
yeah, it's been nice in like revisiting it of just being like, oh, where are the parts of the story that I did appreciate? Um, and obviously I'm still early on, but like there was this whole sequence towards the end of 2.5 that I remember really liking, where you go and like recruit people to be a part of this group called the Crystal Braves.
Oh,
And
yeah.
somebody in passing mentioned it, and there are different story point now at this point, but at the time it was a little bit more like you were building this little army basically. And I remember really liking that. And something that I have, and this might go back to me like talking about earlier about like appreciating just being an adventure in Final Fantasy 11 at times, is like I do tend to like to be a part of a group of people, like being a normal person in a group of people in games versus like the one, right? So I think
Yeah.
that like kind of gave me feelings of that, of like, oh, I'm a part of this team of characters that are kind of just made up of normal people in the world. This isn't like Thancred or, it's not a faced character really. It's just like random character they made with the character creator, right? Um, which 1.0 kind of is in that. All the characters in 1.0 are kind of character creator characters, anyways. But, um, but I remember really appreciating that at the very least. And yeah, so like all these little bits are coming back to me. So I'm hoping that kind of reconnects it, because listening to myself in the past, it seems like I liked the story. I know you said that was kind of like the boring part of the story, but like it
Yeah.
seemed like at the time I was saying this is the driving force for why I want to continue playing this game. Um, in general, like in revisiting my old writing about the game, I actually was pretty positive about 2.0. Interestingly enough, I didn't expect that. Um, Specifically, I think I really like the redesigned environments because even as much as I like 1.0, those environments are just big empty zones.
Yeah.
Basically, there's not a lot going on there. Um, but I seen, and kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, like what do you do to enjoy Final Fantasy XI? Um, I think what happened is I really started to fall off once I hit the end of the game, and then it
Hmm.
became time to start grinding gear.
Yeah.
Um, at this time, it was like Wanderer's Palace, I think is what the dungeon was, and basically
Oh
people would
wow.
just run Wanderer's Palace all the time.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know how true this is of the game today, but at the time it was like run Wonders Palace like however many times you get a number of currency, and then there's a max amount of currency. So every week you want to get the max amount of currency, but it was like limited, so you couldn't buy all the gear at once. So you had to like buy it week by week, basically.
Yeah.
And I remember like being on my like 30th run of Wonders Palace and just being like, I want to die. Uh, like I just, but I think another part of this that got mixed into it, I think I told you this last time, is like I started becoming like really aware of my mistakes because I would find that people were very active at telling you that you weren't playing well. At least telling me, which, as somebody who came from Final Fantasy 11, it's a very different game. And I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily playing it like 11, but I think I wasn't doing the fastest strat possible for getting through
Yeah.
like a thing all the time. And another thing that came up was I remember getting really frustrated when I would like go to play a boss fight, and then
Hmm.
people get mad at me for not knowing how to beat it on my first time already.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. Then I started
That's
watching YouTube videos, and I was just like, I don't really want to be doing this. And then it like started to like make me, I think, become very, if I did mess up because I knew what was the like optimal right way to do it, it was almost like it made me feel worse than better. Like I feel
yeah.
like there wasn't a I performed well. It was like a I fell under the standard if I didn't do it 100% right. If that makes sense.
I
I don't know
think
how
so.
true that is today, but I keep hearing people say it's about optimization, not messing up. And so like I think there might be something there where like I seem to get a negative feeling from that versus other people
Yeah.
seem to get a positive feeling from that.
Yes. Like I think that is true. It is all about optimization, but that is only really necessary and enforced when you start getting into endgame content. Nobody should be giving you shit for not doing everything perfectly in normal content.
Yeah.
It's just like, stuff like Ifrit or Titan or any of those early fights, like unless you are a tank who's not tanking or a healer who's not healing, nobody should be giving you shit for anything.
I do play tank. I will tell you
Okay.
that much. I mean, obviously, I know my job is tank,
Yeah.
so I'm going to tank. But and at the time, this was new content, right? This was not. It wasn't like the end game raid. I think Coil was what the end game raid was at the time. It's
Oh,
like
okay. Yeah.
Binding of Coil, but like it was the tier. It was the stuff that was below doing that, and that was kind of like the high tier for players that really cared, right? And I kind of was like, especially since I was already having problems at like this secondary level, I was like, I'm not touching that because it seemed like people were very adamant about that
Wow.
or about maximum performance at that tier. I could
Yeah.
be wrong. This is just, and keep in mind, these are perceptions from like 12 years ago. It
Yeah.
could very well be something that I was misinterpreting it at the time. One thing I've learned a lot about Final Fantasy XI is I think the reason I started not liking the game to some extent was because I did not adapt to do things that I would want to do in 11.
Hmm.
I think that's like why Horizon's been very easy for me right now, is because I've adapted every time I felt like I don't want to be doing this. I'm going to go do something I want to do.
Yeah.
And I think maybe 2.0 I didn't have that like
Yeah.
experience. I was just like I'm doing the thing people are telling me to do and I don't like it. Kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds to me like, I mean, I wasn't around during that era, but I
Mhm.
think the general flow of the game, the general state of the game has undergone a bit of a shift where the wall between normal and high-end content is now very clearly visible, and nobody nobody's going to care if you're not playing normal content perfectly.
Yeah.
High-end content is where you really have to start paying attention and doing it deliberately. And that's not the kind of content you accidentally get into. You get into it because you've studied and you found a group and you've talked with them and you have a raid plan.
Yeah.
Just doing stuff in Duty Finder is like, unless you're actively ignoring your role, nobody cares. Nobody's going to say anything
Would you say
these
that's
days.
true of like dungeons at the end game at this point right now? Where
Yes. I think if you are a tank, most tanks are expected to pull wall to wall, or at least pull multiple groups as you go through the dungeon to avoid stopping and fighting at every single pack of monsters. They
yeah.
like to group it up and then everybody does their AoE. That's really it. And I had that, honestly, not the exact same thing, but I got yelled at in 11 for not, when I was in experienced parties, for not pulling fast enough. There'd always be that one asshole who's like, speed,
Yeah.
speed, pull, speed.
Yeah.
Every fucking time. Every party I'm in, there's that one asshole who just, no, we have to go faster. Why? Shut up.
I think I will say that like that is definitely like people in Horizon are like that as well.
Yeah.
And those are people I actively avoid.
Yeah.
Usually at that point I'm like, okay, if this guy invites me to a party again, I'm probably not
Yeah.
gonna come.
That's the nice
So,
thing. That's the nice
so
thing about 14's Duty Finder is that if you do get one of those assholes, they're gone after the dungeon. You finish the dungeon, automatically disband, you move on to the next thing.
I will say this: when I played this most recent time, I did not feel that same feeling of like shame for not performing. Where I
Yeah.
think back then I felt more like actual shame for like not doing well. But I
Yeah.
was a part of a link shell doing content. And again, this is one of those things that I'm not 100% sure is true or not. But remember at the time feeling like it was one of those link shells where like they kind of bully you, but that's kind of the fun that they have. And there's nothing
I
wrong with that
Oh, there
per
is. I
se.
reject
But
that. No, that's awful.
well, look,
And I hate it. Don't do
look,
that.
there's different cultures, right? Some people are okay with it. I think
Well,
I
that's a
was not
culture that
good for that.
fucking sucks and I cannot support
We may not fit in there. So, right.
it.
And I don't want to say too much because I think everybody has their different relationships and different friend groups that handle things in
Sure.
different
Yeah.
ways, right? That's just like I don't want to get too deep into that. But I don't think I was right for that. And I think that may have also played in it too, because I remember doing like Crystal Tower and
Yeah.
getting kind of like kicked to be like, hey, stop being bad kind of thing. Not
Oh,
kicked,
jeez.
but
Yeah.
comments basically. Which again, I think a lot of this started getting like ingrained with my idea of like how I played. Like I perceived myself as a bad player, which may have colored their words in a different way at that point.
Yeah. Okay. There's
So
definitely that angle to it because I've had that experience as well. I've had even doing endgame, doing savage fights where if I'm in a new group and we don't really understand each other's personalities yet, they
yeah.
will say something innocuous to let me know I did something wrong, not in a vicious way, but oh boy, do I interpret it that way. And then I start,
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, I'm getting pissed off like, where do you get off talking to me like that? And then
Yeah.
after the fight, they're like, hey, except for that one screw up, really good job. Like, I'm like, oh, thank you. Um, I think what's really important in 14 is just tell, if you are new or even not confident, just say that at the beginning of a dungeon or boss, and immediately everybody will be chill with you. Nobody is gonna care.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna be like, well, hell, shit, let's help you. I'll guide you through this.
So I actually did go back. I forgot how far. I don't have any gameplay from when I originally was playing. But I did look back and I found a video
Oh,
from 2018 where I played, and I had started doing that, and I do feel like anytime I had said that, people were more supportive in the chat kind of thing.
yeah,
I do feel like in most cases in Duty Finder though, you never see anyone talk ever, but that's kind of okay. I don't really care about
yeah,
that. It is a thing that I appreciate in 11 for like communication, but again, this is a different video. We're not thinking about that right now. Communication is a whole other thing, and maybe I'll ask you more about that in the future. I don't know yet,
sure.
but we'll see. So, but yeah, that was kind of at the time. It seemed like my experience with the game in 2.0. But it definitely around like 2.3, 2.4. That's when I seemed to have stopped playing, and then I came back for 2.5 to finish the story, and that was kind of what that happened. And that's when my like off and on Heaven's Word started. I played in 2018, played again in 2020, and
Okay.
then I think I didn't play after that, so that might have been the last time I played for this last time. So, um, anything you want to get off your chest before I talk about this most recent time,
I
or
will
any questions
say
you have?
It is taking a break from any MMO is always a pain because like every time I take a break from 14 and I come back and I try out a job I haven't played in a while, like
Mhm.
there's always 3 or 4 abilities on my hotbar that are just gray and X'd out because they have been
Oh
removed from
yeah,
the game, and I've got to relearn how the rotation works and everything, and that's the kind of thing that doesn't really happen in 11. It's or at least anymore. I don't remember if abilities ever got removed from 11, but certain abilities were
yeah,
changed or nerfed or adjusted. In 14, it's a lot more. They whip out the toolkit and they're like, all right, this ability's gone, replaced by this. This is a new rotation, and that can get annoying because you have to relearn jobs. But
yeah.
that's why I stick to one job.
My impression of modern live service games is that they view culling of certain things as a positive thing. So Final Fantasy XI, in a lot of ways, everything should be valuable at all times, basically, right?
Yeah,
And like the decisions they made back in like however long ago, technically, it's all still there in however you want it to be, right?
yeah,
How you interact with it's a completely different thing. But I think modern live service games usually are happy to kind of remove content. I think even at the time, World of Warcraft did like a thing where they just like blew up all their areas and redesigned it. This
whoa,
is like a long time ago.
yeah,
This is like back when I was playing 11 originally, so I think that was a while. But I think that's like a common thing now. I actually heard somebody complain on. So I typically will post everything I post on Blue Sky on Twitter, and I did get a response on Twitter from my like Final Fantasy 14 thread as well. And somebody there did mention to me that he hates how much Final Fantasy 14 hangs on to all of its story content.
oh
Um,
really?
yeah, he was like, I wish they would just start cutting that stuff out. I know Fantasy Star Online 2 basically said no more of this story mattering for gameplay reasons. Just watch the cutscenes. That's
Yeah,
basically what they did. So I don't know if that's like something that they were thinking about. I wouldn't like that. I did not like that in PSO2. The last thing I want to do is sit in a cutscene viewer to absorb your story, kind of
yeah.
thing.
It's I'm not into that. I like
I
it to
would
happen as a part of the adventure.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, most of the stuff I talked about so far has been old stuff. I think my feelings have changed a little bit more recently. And when I played it most recently, I think the big thing is that you mentioned about like the content being kind of changed in terms of like what skills and stuff are available. I feel like where I'm at in the game now, it's a lot simpler of a game now. I assume because I'm just so far back on that path now, that stuff started getting cut, and now everything that's like more complicated stuff got pushed up to higher levels basically.
Yeah,
Everyone keeps telling me you don't really play your job till you're 70 or something like that basically, and I'm like,
yeah. That's pretty
I'm
true.
just hitting 60. um so I do feel like when I play dungeons, that statement I made earlier about um nothing feels meaningful whatsoever, nothing responds to me, and also I do not see any tension in the gameplay or it's when I say world I mean exploration, I think is what I was saying.
Hmm.
um I do feel like that is very true to like most recent experience where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in these fights. It kind of just feels like I'm mashing attack in a Final Fantasy game and not thinking about combat. Um, and
Yeah.
I wonder if, and this is something that I think I will do because last time we talked, you did suggest that I bring in um, trusts instead to the dungeons rather than play with other players. Because
Hmm.
one point that somebody made was just like when you do these dungeons for the first time on your own, this is your first time in that dungeon, but for everyone else, it's a part of their daily. And
Yeah.
so you will not have any time to kind of appreciate what the fights are doing because everyone's just going to do their part. And even if you mess up, you're just going to heal through it, basically. And so in a lot of ways, I do feel like that, where it's like I just sit there and press the same three inputs over and over again. And I don't necessarily know what happened. I know the boss moved around a little bit, but I
Yeah.
don't understand what's going on. And
Yeah.
so the fight just ends, and I'm just like, okay. And that's okay to some extent, but I don't think I think I'm sitting there asking myself, what is the depth to this gameplay though?
Okay. I can answer
And
that pretty quick. That
yeah.
is so I mentioned earlier there's now a very well-defined wall between the normal content and the high-end content.
Mhm.
That's what it is basically, is the combat is not really going to challenge you or be interesting until you jump into high-end stuff. It is, and it's why a lot of people criticize the game for being simple. I've seen a lot of people say that, "Well, they just telegraph their attacks on the floor, you just step out of them." Yeah,
Yeah.
for a normal fight, that's basic ass content. That's the game teaching you how it works. Once you take that to the extreme and you start doing high-end content, you see, oh, it's not just that anymore. There's a lot to consider. There's different markings on me, on the floor, on my party members. I am tethered to another character, and that tether is green, which means I need to run to them right now or we both die. It's a
Yeah.
lot of that. And they don't put that in the normal content because it's too tricky to deal with for if you're just doing your dailies and stuff. But when someone is ready to challenge themselves, then you jump into the higher stuff that has all of that in there. And they have it's not a perfect design, like I'll admit that.
Yeah.
But they've gotten better about slowly sprinkling more of that into normal content. I think Dawn Trail was the first expansion where normal stuff has started to get a little bit harder, and then the harder stuff as well was starting to get a little bit more unique. And up until that, yeah, that divide was very, very clear. And I kind of like that it's getting blurred a little bit more. Like there's some mechanics in the new raid that seemed almost like they were from an extreme or a savage fight. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
older
that's.
stuff is going to be very easy.
I think for me, and this I think sometimes I simplify this as difficulty. So if I ever talk about Final Fantasy XIV's difficulty, just know that I'm not actually saying Final Fantasy XIV's difficulty. I use that
Yeah.
word a lot without meaning it.
Oh yeah.
But I think I am looking for what are the mechanics of this game in a way that is like I can identify them basically.
Yes.
And right now, circles on the floor, like sure, it's there, right? Um, and it's easy enough not to like go into those. And on Paladin, like my rotation right now is just 3 buttons basically. So it seems to be more about like when do you use your cooldowns and stuff like that. And so I have
Yeah,
been
exactly.
talking with people to try to understand like, okay, when should I use these? But the way it was presented to me by somebody was the idea that it's like a 200-hour tutorial or a tutorial stretched across 200 hours at this point,
That's
basically,
a very good way of
which
describing it.
it reminds me a little bit of like how much like frustration people had with Final Fantasy 13, where I think Final Fantasy 13 gets really good gameplay wise around like 15 to 20 hours, depending on what you're looking for out of the game.
Yeah.
But I think around that time frame, the game shows you as a card of like, hey, this is how role swapping in combat works, right? And this is how like all this stuff matters to the game. And I myself actually really struggle still to recommend 13 to people if they aren't willing to put up with that like 15 hours of just like
Yeah,
not really having any mechanics to deal with. So
I get
um
that.
it is interesting to me because I feel like this content was obviously originally designed to be content that was a part of the main game, right? Like you were
Yeah.
actively playing this and people were playing it for the first time. So it sounds, I guess in my mind, it's like, I wonder, it seems like a weird design decision at the time to say, like, we're not going to really put any mechanics in these fights, even though this is like kind of the main content of the expansion right now.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't mean that that's a like right or wrong, but I think that's like one of those weird things where like my head gets a little like confused when people start saying stuff like that because I'm just like, okay, like man, how did you power through this? Like I one thing I don't know if you saw this, I seriously contemplated like maybe I should just drink when I play Final Fantasy 14 as well.
I mean,
'Cause,
it
like
worked for
maybe
me
it'll
for a few
numb me to the
years.
point. So
Yeah.
but
Honestly, that is how I got through 2 and 3.0 was just drinking and chain smoking and listening to podcasts. Just lock yourself in a basement for a few weeks and do that.
I don't think so. This gets kind of to your alcohol stuff. So if this is like, I think you're pretty open about it. So I
Oh,
don't think it's
absolutely,
like
yeah.
a big deal. But if you ever like are like, I don't want to talk about this, feel free to let me know.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like when you look at something like alcohol, as somebody who doesn't really drink a lot of alcohol, um, maybe like once every 6 months, I'll have like a couple drinks over the course of like a like if there's like a holiday, I might like have like a I'm like
Sure.
a trash person when it comes to drink flavors, and I'm like the monster alcohol drink or
Oh,
whatever
no.
that's like full of chemicals. Um, but like I assume with alcohol, in some ways, a lot of it's about like finding your peaceful state, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, and so, like, when I think about if I imagine you sitting in your bar drinking and playing Fallout 14, I feel like it is you saying, "This is my peaceful time." How true that is, or how, like, if that's like a good way to find that's kind of another thing, right? But I do feel like that is what you may have initially got out of the game was like, I'm not necessarily here to think too hard about this or anything like that. I'm just
Yeah.
here to basically be in the moment at the moment and just like let
Yeah,
life go over me. Is that an accurate
it
statement, would you
was
say? Or
absolutely. It was. I looked forward to it every day. Like I would work the
Mhm.
bar all day, and then I'd be drinking all day too. Like I drink from open to close from like 5 to midnight, and then at
Yeah,
midnight I close up, and I would get so excited because then I would turn on the PS4. I'd go sit on the other side of the bar. I'd pour myself, over the next several hours, a few dozen more drinks. I'd smoke a pack and a half of
yeah.
cigarettes, and I would just do nothing but play FF14. And my brain was in this just very pleasant haze while I did
Mhm.
rotations and made my gear just a little bit stronger with every dungeon. Um, and then eventually realized, oh, this is awful. I need to stop doing this to myself. And
Yeah,
one of those moments came when I tried to do high end content in that state, and I got into a party and I just immediately sabotaged the entire party because they're doing complex maneuvers and I'm drunk off my ass and
yeah,
I got kicked and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm new to the fight. Why am I getting kicked?" And it's cuz like I wasn't even trying. I was just
yeah,
like hitting the boss and not respecting the mechanics.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I would get locked into just a zone where I'm like, "I'm doing this for the next few hours. Let's zone out. Let's do it."
Would you say that's still, in your new post-alcohol life, as far as I'm aware,
Yeah.
um, would you say that's still like what you go to 14 for, is to like have that moment of just like I'm here and relaxing? Because when I hear you talk about 14 now, it's very much like I'm in the raid, I'm coordinating. I assume to some extent you're socializing.
Yeah.
It depends on how communicative your group is and like how much you like them or not, right? Um, but like that, so that's where the part of the game I hear you talk about most. I don't know if I hear so much about you talking about this kind of like this is a space for me to kind of wind down
Yeah.
as
Okay,
much.
well let's do this. Let's classify non-high-end content as I know casual is a dirty word. I don't care. I'm gonna call it casual.
Casual is fine.
Uh,
Like
because
I'm the Wii and DS are my favorite system. It's
good,
okay. Just
excellent.
call it casual.
Because my approach to FF11 was and still is very casual. I don't like to
Mhm.
do or have not done a lot of high end stuff in 11 because
11? Okay. I just
yeah,
want to
I
make
like
sure.
to
Okay.
play alone. I went back to 11 to make the video, and I recently realized, "Oh, this is really cozy. This is
Yeah.
really fun to play alone. I got my trusts. I can do Dynamis solo. I never could have done that when I was playing originally.
Yeah.
And there is a large slice of FF14 gameplay that gives me that exact same sensation. There is
Yeah.
stuff I can do alone, and that is crafting.
Mhm.
It is farming gear for future ultimate fights because like just this past weekend, my static group decided we're going to do the new ultimate fight, and equipment does scale in that game. If a fight is capped at a certain level or eye level, you're even I have the best in slot right now for samurai, and my equipment
Mhm.
will scale down. However, due to the way that scaling works, you get a slight advantage if you have equipment that is exactly that item level. So
Yeah.
I spent the weekend farming equipment that's not as good as the stuff I have now, but it will be more effective in the upcoming ultimate fight because it won't be scaled. That's also casual, cozy content because it was just me grinding a dungeon or, sifting through all my gear, my old gear to find the specific rings and amulets and whatnot for the fight. Um, that's all low pressure fun in the same way
Yeah.
that FF11 was for me, where I can just kind of sit back, pour a drink, put on a podcast, let's go, let's check these boxes off the list and gather stuff. I like doing that in both games. So FF14 for me does both of those,
Mm, mm.
the high end
Yeah, I
stuff
mean,
and the casual stuff.
yeah, I think I don't know much about modern 11, but I think that stuff is there where it's like there's the actual hard content, right? Where people
Oh yeah.
they
Oh,
put in a new
I didn't
fight and it's
mess.
like there for months and stuff like that. But I'd
Yeah.
imagine you're not looking to do that kind of thing, right?
No, yeah, I
So,
thought about it for the video. Like I thought about like I've never done sortie. I've never done. I still haven't unlocked any of the void, the whatever, the voracious resurgence because I haven't finished Rhapsodies of Vana'diel because I'm stuck on a stupid dragon fight. Like there's a lot of stuff I don't even have unlocked because I have a very sequential brain where like, all right, we're gonna finish Rise of the Zalart, we're gonna finish Chains of Promethea, we're gonna finish Treasures of Artagon, and I'm doing it all in order. And I'm like seeing if I can solo Sky and solo Dynamis and solo Abyssia, and I can, and that's fun because those are things I was too scared to do. Like
mhm,
years ago, I was in a link shell that did Dynamis and Sky, back in 2006, 7, when I was living in Japan, and they were based in the UK, and I'd get up at 4 a.m. to raid with these folks before work. And I got a couple of drops here and there, and it was very exciting. But it was also like, back before that content was redesigned for small groups, it was 64 people in a zone. My my new laptop is chugging at a frame rate of 2. I don't know what I'm hitting, but I'm hitting something. I'm helping.
Yeah.
Um, and now the experience is totally different, and I kind of like catching up on that content in a way that I could not before.
I want to ask you a question about Sky, but I'm wondering if I should because it might be off topic a little bit. But
There
it's
is
probably
no
fine.
on topic. It's
There's no
great.
on
It's fun.
topic.
Yeah.
When it comes to Sky in the modern era of 11, does it feel like challenging content? Because like I feel like the outside impression
Yeah.
of a lot of stuff is that like, oh, there's so much content and a lot of it you can just kind of push through with trusts and things like that. There's like
Yeah.
not really anything you're doing beyond just kind of like leveling up and then just kind of pushing through rather than like engaging with any sort of like specific mechanics or anything like that with those fights.
I
Um,
I didn't even get to any of the fights in Sky because I was competing with people for pops for spawn items, because you still have to farm all the spawn items.
oh, gotcha.
And those are still camped. People still camp those. And so I was like killing placeholders and looking at widescan and running around, and yeah, it's that part is
That's
still as competitive as before.
Notorious Monster Hunter is probably my least favorite part of 11.
Oh, I
I
used to love
actively
it.
avoid it.
It's the
I
reason it's the reason I kept playing the game after college, because the last thing I did senior year of college was I camped Argus for the Peacock Charm, and I got the claim and I got the drop, and then I'm like, "Well, I can't quit now. I have this." Like, I can't. I was working on this for 6 months. I can't stop.
I think for me, and maybe this is like maybe because we had different experiences to some extent, but like I remember farming like probably like 6 or 7 monsters and being there for like, however long, just camping while I'm in high
Yeah.
school. I'm playing other games in between things. Like I'm playing like Symphony of the Night and Resident Evil 4 and stuff like that. But
Oh, yeah.
I remember getting like 0 out of 30 on like every single one and being like, I want to die. And so
Uh,
now I've like learned that like they're not worth it. I'm just gonna craft and make money through crafting.
yeah.
Which I am at the point now with Horizon where I'm like not at the point where I can buy the most expensive stuff, but I'm also at the point where like anything that's like relatively expensive is affordable. So I kind of don't have a lot to buy unless I want to buy best in slot or whatever, which is my
Yeah.
least favorite gear to buy, because I want weird stuff. I don't want the best stats, so I never have to change a slot.
Yeah.
Like I do equipment swapping is my favorite thing to do in 11. I just like
Oh,
swapping around,
I mean,
and that's great. But
that is still very much alive in, I think, every version of
yes,
11, is you do have to do a lot of gear swapping.
I think that's
Uh,
like a very consistent thing, and they have since original 11 improved it immensely
oh,
with
yeah.
the wardrobe system. I mean, Horizon even brought that system in. They're like, "Sorry guys, we're going to keep this where we know you guys want to equip 8,000 things, so we're going to give you 2 extra inventories basically." Um so that's really nice, but um trying to think like where I want to go next on 14 with this. I was curious when you think about like nostalgia for Final Fantasy 11. I think I made a comment on your video about this with like Final Fantasy 14
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. It's like because I have when I talk to my friends who played Final Fantasy 14, it's very much this the game used to be great and now they've kind of ruined it essentially, right? I don't know if ruined it's the right term, but they're unhappy with it where the game's at, right?
Mhm.
Um and it's a little weird for me because like in some ways I will mention that like I don't understand what makes Final Fantasy 14 good, and then these things start coming in, and it's weird because I'm like, well, that's I didn't like the game then either. That's what I wasn't playing either.
Yeah.
Um, like you mentioned a little bit about nostalgia with 11 in your video. Like, how important do you think nostalgia is to your enjoyment of modern 11 these days? And maybe do you think that connects with your 14 experience at all, given it's been like a 10-plus-year-old game at this point?
I'd say nostalgia is much more important to my enjoyment of 11.
Yeah.
And that's just because the world now is so old and I've been in it for so long. And like, even when I'm doing new stuff or stuff that I haven't done yet in 11, it's still based off of old stuff. Like, look at this new Dynamis area. Yeah, it's still Sandoria though. Like, look at this. Look at let's do some Abyssia. I haven't done this Abyssia yet. Yeah, but it's Tarongi Canyon, which I lived in for several years. Like, it's
Yeah.
nostalgia is always going to be tied to everything in FF11, and I don't mind that, because at least I'm working towards a new goal, even if I'm surrounded by a familiar environment, like grinding out new gear.
I want to ask you a question that might sound very stupid.
Great.
But when you feel nostalgia when you play, this is literally like comes down to like, what does it feel like when you feel nostalgia? When you feel nostalgia in 11, like what do you think you're feeling? Because like sometimes I have this moment with Horizon. That experience has kind of overwritten my old Final Fantasy XI experience. I don't revere my old Final Fantasy XI experience as much as I used to. In some ways, I think I have de-elevated it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think at the time I just was like not looking at the game the right way. In a way that today I get the most I've ever gotten out of 11 today on Horizon. Um, but like sometimes I'll have these moments where like I stare at a very specific angle and I don't know why, and it's almost this like weird hollow feeling, but it's only there for like a second. And this might come something down to like how my memory works, because when I think of memories of like family, like I see the room I was in, but no people.
Yeah.
It's all a list of names that say this person was here, this person was here, and this person was there. So
Oh, wow.
sometimes I think there's like this weird thing where like I have a hard time like interpreting nostalgia, because it's like it's almost like a spreadsheet in my brain. So like I view nostalgia as like a list of bullet points when I see it. So I don't know if you have like a different feeling when you feel nostalgia.
I think that's a very interesting point, because when I think of my memories of the past, I do remember all the people who were there. But I think one of the reasons that I have such a strong nostalgia for FF11 is because it was a time in my life when there weren't many people in those rooms except for me.
Yeah.
It was a game that shepherded me through college when I was mostly living alone and mostly didn't have friends. And I think that's why it fills me with a gentle kind of empty nostalgia that I like. But it's not really depressing, because like I'm out of it now, but it's kind of nice to remember being in that place and having FF11 to rely on when I was in that situation. And like if I'm walking around Selbina or Windurst or something, like it's not the same as playing an offline RPG where a village is in a static state and maybe plot things happen, but you can reset the game and it'll go right back to the way it was before.
Mm.
When I'm in Windurst in 2025, it feels like I'm hanging out in like a Civil War reenactment. Like, I know you guys aren't actually Union soldiers, but pretty convincing costumes,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
It's like it's not the place, but it's just a great recreation of it
Mm.
in my mind.
Do you think you'll feel nostalgia for 14 at some point?
Um, kind of, yeah, kind of. In a way, like 14 has grabbed me narratively in a way that a lot of my favorite offline games have, and that's because I just got to know the characters. I really like a lot of the characters, and there's no way to do that other than just be around them a lot and take in the story. In the same way that like um there's a lot of RPGs that I don't like because I found the characters grating or annoying, and so I don't go back to them. I don't have nostalgia for them. 14, I
Mm.
do. I like all the characters. I like what they've done with all the characters. But playing the game itself, I don't think is going to give me that same sense of nostalgia in the future, just because, I mean, I played the first half of it drunk off my face, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot nostalgic about that I have for that period of my life. But also, I'm not playing with the same people I was, and that was the other nostalgic part. Like my pals, Smoo and Brad don't really play anymore, and when I play with them, I do kinda get that sensation, but now I play it for the challenges that are there now, and I'm playing with people that I don't really know that well. And maybe in the future, like, if I stay with this static group for years and years, maybe I will look back on this content as nostalgic, but
Yeah.
I don't see it having the same nostalgic appeal as 11 in that way.
Yeah. I think one thing that if I were to like look back at 11 in a way that like respects the 13-year-old me or however old I was, like I do think it was like a really useful tool for me to get in contact with people who had a shared interest, basically. Because I grew up at the time when like Nintendo was not the cool
Oh
company to
yeah.
be in when you're a kid, and so like I'd go to school and people be playing, Grand Theft Auto or something like that, and I'm like, guys, Chibi Robo. Right. So, and so I think 11 gave me a space at times where it was like, oh, I can communicate with somebody and tell them about something happening in 11. And then that is like reciprocated back to me. Like I can talk about this thing and appreciate this thing. And then they will look at it and say, yeah, cool. I
Yeah.
like playing Paladin too. And that kind of thing. Where I think that was probably kind of important to me as a kid. I think, like when I look back at what was important about 11 in the context of being like a 13-year-old. Um, in some ways, I was like trying to connect like I guess you'd call it nostalgia for 11. Um, but I don't know. I feel weird about it now because I don't even really look at it the same way anymore now that I've played Horizon. But like I was trying to connect systems to that feeling back then. In some ways, I think like understanding the systems have pulled that feeling away. It's almost like I have taken these things that like I thought were important in 11 at the time, and I've said, no, these are mine now. 13-year-old me can't have these anymore. These are
Yeah.
my systems. So now it's like what to me, what's most important when I talk about 11 is like, what are my values today and why 11 works for that. Horizon specifically. I haven't really gone back to like retail 11 anytime recently, so
Yeah.
I have
I
played it off and on. I've always kind of felt weird about it every time, but I think in playing Horizon, I realized that the things that I respected about 11 were the things that were over time de-emphasized and things like that.
one of the toughest things for me, like going back to retail, was very easy in a very broad sense because there's so much QOL now. There's so much fast travel. But because now the amount of items, there's just so many items now,
Yeah,
it means that everything under, or like everything introduced before a certain time is just completely devalued. And that goes against the way that I grew up playing 11, which was save every item because you need money and you want to sell them. And it took me an entire weekend to go through my inventory and all my mules inventories to ultimately sell or just NPC or throw away 90% of what they were holding because it's worthless now.
yeah.
And I do kind of miss being an item pack rat when there were fewer total items in the game and being like, oh, I just stole my 12th silver thread. I can put up a stack. And that's
I make a point in 11 to make use of as much as I can. I
yeah.
get out of a party, I'm like, I'm doing something with this beetle
Yes.
jaw.
Yeah.
It's gonna be something.
Does
Not letting it
Horizon
go.
does Horizon have the crystal Moogles? Because that was one of my favorite additions.
No, it does not,
Oh, okay.
as
Because
far as
those
I'm
are
aware. So,
super handy. Because you're no longer sitting on stacks and stacks of crystals anymore. You can just give them to a Moogle.
oh, they have. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, they have the crystal clusters, but that's it.
Oh,
To kind of bring this back to 14 a little bit, then maybe is that I was talking to my friend because I'm looking to diversify what I do in 14. I think I told you before that like this thing of being in catch up mode needs to stop
yeah,
because it is miserable for me. It is essentially saying like, will you watch an 8-hour movie and then sitting down and trying to do that in a like, a couple day period and be like, I don't want to watch any more of this game anymore, please. So I think that's going to happen a lot smaller chunks. And I think the question I have at this point is like, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean I just stop playing 14 and play other things, which I think is a very reasonable answer, right? To just play 14 little bits at a time and then don't
yeah.
invest in it too much. I think one thing that might be a little hard for me is that, like, when I talk to some people, they talk about Final Fantasy 14 as a social space.
Hmm.
Um, in some ways, Horizon 11 was that for me, and I kind of intentionally decided not to do that anymore. I like Horizon 11 as like a passing uh, companionship way
Yeah,
now. That is how I play the game of I'm going to go play with somebody. We're going to have a great time in a party for about 2 hours. Someone's going to recommend I try poke, which I'm like, oh, I guess I've never had it before, have I? And I'll do that, but I'm never going to see that person again. Right.
yeah,
And I appreciate that. Like I had that moment of like 2 hours. Basically the way I present it is like joining a little chat room for a couple hours and just whoever you get, you're basically getting a dice roll of people. Um, so, but I don't necessarily know if like it sounds like to me 14 social experience is about building a community of people or joining a community of people and maintaining those relationships. um and that can be as simple as just joining a link shell, right, and just chiming in when it makes sense. But you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that kind of what you would say the social experience of 14 is like you commit to a group or else you're not really going to engage with anybody?
For the most part, yes. I mean, when you do your duty roulette stuff and you're in a huge alliance raid, like there's plenty of banter, certainly. There's folks just kind of
Hmm.
joking and goofing and, and that is fun. But yeah, most of the time it's just you have your free company. The free company, I think, has taken the place of 11's link shell as the basis of the community. And the free company probably has a Discord, and that's where you're going to hang out and talk to your pals outside of the game. Um, a little bit ironic to me, as you probably know, Discord was created for FF11 for folks to talk about FF11 while playing FF11.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I use it mostly for FF14 for keeping in touch with people. And it is. I'm on a couple of different. I have a Discord from the free company that I'm in, and a Discord for the Savage raid group that I'm in, and it's different kinds of conversations, but everyone's very chill. Everyone has a good time. And it is kind of nice. And this is nothing to do with the games. It's just how technology has progressed. It is nice to be in touch with the people that I play the game with outside of the game. Because in 11, once I logged off, I mean, I was friends with some of them on like AOL Instant Messenger or IRC,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's nice now to have a centralized location where I can just talk to everybody that I'm playing the game with. And that's still largely the same for 11 now that everyone can use Discord for 11 as well. It is nice. The social aspect is still there. It is very strong.
I think back then, forums would kind of every link show would have a forum. Basically, that's
Yes.
where they
Yeah.
kind of
Wow.
coordinated. So, um, outside of the game, so I remember posting on various. Well, my main forum for end game stuff mostly, which I kind of wish was still around. I would love to see what I was saying back then as a teenager. I'm sure nothing of value, and that would make
Dragon
it all the
Club
more valuable to
sucks.
me. So, but yeah, I wonder. So one thing I might feel like I'll have a challenge with is that like right now, I feel like so one thing I've done, I will, and I think I've told you this before, but like one thing I very much appreciated was your Resident Evil therapy marathon donation thing because
Oh
that got me to go to
yeah.
therapy, and I've learned a lot through going through therapy.
Yeah. Good.
And so I do appreciate you doing that because that was
Nice.
a rough spot in my life. And so I was like,
Yeah.
cool, okay, I'll do this. And it's been very good experience. But
Good.
one thing I've kind of had to do is like restructure a lot of my social life because there's a lot of like bad things I was doing socially in
Yeah.
terms of like who I prioritize, why I prioritize them, blah, 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 blah. So I had to kind of like move all these pieces around. And in some ways it's still kind of a challenge at times. Um, but right now I don't know if I have like a lot of space in my life to like join a link shell and be like a community member, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I think this is part of why in Final Fantasy XI I pulled back. I was like, I kind of want to just be a passerby. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to be somebody who's going to log in and be like, "Hey, are you free right now to do this?" Blah 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 blah. Blah. Which 14's a little bit different in that regard, where I don't think you're getting as much of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's like some expectation of like, oh, you're going to talk in here and stuff like that. And I think 11, I very much kind of shied away from that. So I do worry that in thinking before, I think I told you I was like, I need to find a way to socialize in 14. I think the answer might be that that's just not where I'm at right now in my life.
Yeah.
And I need to look at Final Fantasy 14 as a game that is not a social experience whatsoever, at least until the end game.
Okay.
End game,
Well,
maybe it's a bit different, but
I oh boy. I don't know. I would say, are you in a free company right now?
I'm in a group with a couple of my friends on my same server. I don't know if it's an active group or not. Last time I was logged in, I think they're like they've also quit
Okay.
the game at this point. So,
Oh,
this is the one I was telling you about. Like they were subscribed, but just to keep their house. And so every time the
yeah.
subscription lapsed, I'd get the email of
Oh
your
boy.
house is going to be demolished. So they finally let it go. So I
Uh,
think I'm in a group, but it's not like I think it's just those two guys basically
okay.
at this point.
Um, because I would say like if you look up free company recruitment posts in or out of game, you can find a nice friendly free company, and it's just nice. It's nice to have, just like in FF11 when you were on the link shell, even if you weren't using it to talk about what you were doing, it was just a fun place to bullshit with people about what's happening in your life, and that's kind of the function that the free company serves as well. And I know you've kind of backed away from that in FF11, but the free company also introduces the I don't know why I like this so much, but I do, because I don't have a house in FF14. But the free company house is just kind of a communal space where your character can go and just hang out. And depending how into decoration the person who runs it is, like there might be a fireplace or a pool or an onsen or a dining room. And it's just a nice, chill place to hang out with other players when you're not doing anything specifically,
Okay,
which
just to
is a nice
clarify, so
vibe.
these are active live players there. It's not like your character stays in the house when you're logged out or something like that, right?
No, no, yeah. Well, no,
Okay.
yeah, your character's not visible when you're logged out, but yeah.
I think that'd be kind of cute if your character was like lounging around the house
That would be nice. I wish you could do that.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
So, but I wanted to make sure that's what you were saying when you said your character
Yes.
would just be there, kind of thing. Is it because you're
Yeah,
actually logged in there?
it's it's a nice atmosphere that I don't know. I can't quite illustrate what makes it so cozy to me, but it's nice to have an in-game place to go to just be
Mm,
around the people that you're talking with. And like in I like the link shells in 11, but you kind of only see other players when you're doing fights with
yeah.
them or you're doing content with them. And the free company house is just a nice communal place to hang out and plan what to do and just talk, which to me added to the community aspect.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that might not be what you're looking
Part of
for.
me is like, I should try that. But then a part of me also knows that like my entire like therapy thing right now, not entire, but a big part of it is pulling back from those spaces and not
Yeah.
just jumping into them.
Yeah.
So I'll have to think about it. I'll have to think about that
Oh
one
yeah,
because I think, yeah,
I'm coming at this from the context of using it as a window into appreciating FF14 more. But if it conflicts with like actual advice from an actual therapist, then I cannot recommend it in any way.
oh, so the therapy license above the Final Fantasy 14 therapy license kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah, that authority.
Yeah. I'm no longer licensed by the prefecture.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Um, Yeah, and I think it's one of like the other thing I've been thinking about. So I've been playing a lot of VR chat recently with some friends, and that is kind of that space for me right now. And
Okay.
that is with people that I would like that space to be with at
Yeah.
the moment. And so that's like important to me right now as well. So and so like when I think about like if I'm gonna go sit somewhere and just be there, it'd probably be VR chat versus Final Fantasy 14. But
Yeah.
I'll be open to it. I think the big thing is just staying open to it. Worst case scenario, join a free company, say, I don't want this, and just leave.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sure plenty enough people join free companies and just bail at some point. So
Yes.
somebody mentioned to me, so this is like one of those things where like sometimes I get this way, and maybe this is like the whole premise of this show, where somebody says you can't do that, and then I aggressively try to do it anyways. So people be like, "You just will never like Final Fantasy 14." It's like, "Fuck you, I will like Final Fantasy 14." um, and so one thing I'm like really trying to finagle into the game is like having some sense of like agency over a
Hmm.
situation.
Yes.
There's this whole idea of minimum item level content. I think you mentioned it in your
Oh yeah,
video.
yeah. Yeah.
And then also I've been told there are blind run groups. I don't know
Yes.
if these cross connect and also where in the experience they do. Because if that's something I could join early on and say, I want to do early content blind at item level, I don't know for sure. I haven't tried it yet, but it feels like if there's a more chance of me dying from doing something bad, I would be happier with that right now.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if that's something that only exists at the end of the game for when new content comes out and say we're going to do new content blind.
Oh, I don't think
I
so.
don't know the community's like set up with that stuff. So
That's a good question. I don't know either. I see postings for it on Party Finder pretty often, but I've never
mm,
joined them. I don't know. I don't know who's doing that stuff. I imagine a lot of it is also organized on Discords as well.
yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting, and I wish I had more information about that. But
Okay. Does that sound like a reasonable approach to take to some extent?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
if you're looking for that experience. I mean, blind runs, what I do find really fun is doing blind runs. I mean, we just call it fresh prog or blind prog, but doing
Hmm.
a new fight, going in completely blind. And some people do it because the common practice is when new fights are released, you either try them with your static or you look at a guide. You all pour over a guide and you look at
Hmm.
what the attacks are, you look at what you're supposed to do. There are actually quite a lot of people who prefer, no, 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 let's just rush in and we try to figure it out together. And
That's what I think I would prefer.
I've done
That
some of
when
those parties and they're super fun.
I have another multiplayer group that I play games with, and there's kind of mixed feelings in the group about this.
Yeah.
But me and another guy are very much just like, we just kind of want to play the game together and
Yeah.
learn about it together. And if one of you guys runs off and gets like 30 hours ahead of us and then comes back and you're just destroying everything, it's like we kind of feel like we're losing out on the fun
Yeah.
if you do that. So we have to like kind of wrangle people back in and be like, stop, come back.
I will,
so
yeah. I will
and so I
say
think that would be valuable to me at least. So
the one downside or the one pitfall to that is make sure you're doing it with people who know that you're new or who are also new themselves, because there is a tendency among FF14 players when a new boss uses an attack that an older boss has used before, that's what they call the attack. Like the first boss to use an attack has named the attack forever. If you go
okay,
into a
gotcha.
boss blind and it does an attack that targets everybody in a cone, somebody in the group is going to say, "Okay, Proteans, he's doing Proteans," and you're thinking, "What the fuck is Proteans?" Oh, it's from an Alexander boss from like 8 years
Yeah.
ago that used that attack, and it was called Proteans. Even if this one is called like Miasma Wave or some shit, it's Proteans forever. And so you have to
That's
know, okay, that's what
the
Proteans is. That happens a lot.
This happens in a lot of communities. Like, I
Yeah.
think one of the things that I was kind of, and this is again me kind of being a jerk about it. When I learned fighting games, I was working with people to teach me fighting games, and they would use a
Oh
sentence
my
with about
god.
5 jargon words in it.
Yeah, I can't. I hate
And
it.
I would sit there and just make them explain every single word
Yeah.
and say, okay, now re-say that. And I absolutely could have gone and like found like a catalog of terms, but I'm like, no, if you're gonna put this on me, I'm gonna make you do this too.
Oh no.
And it was helpful for me because when I turn around, because a lot of what I do with games is like I'm a very like variety person. And so I take something and I explore it as much as I want to. Maybe that's deep, maybe that's not deep, maybe it's just like the surface level. And I try to repackage it for other people and communicate it in like the most baseline way. Like I want to be able to tell my dad while Final Fantasy XIV works, even though my dad's never played like an RPG in his life, Skyrim
All right.
kind of thing. But like that is important to me to be able to go and just kind of tell anyone what Final Fantasy XIV is without having to worry about it. And so I think with fighting games, similar thing. I need to tell you, like, dad, what the fighting game appeal is, basically. And I'm going to make you simplify all this language down, or at least give me enough tools so I can simplify the language down,
Yeah.
basically. Because if I sit here and start like adopting jargon, then that becomes how I talk about it, which then starts becoming
Oh yeah.
how I communicate it, which I think is a bad thing. But it is a little bit of tension for people because they're just like, the eighth time they've used a piece of jargon, I'm like still refusing to fully
Yeah.
like study kind of thing.
There is a lot of
Um,
jargon. Yeah.
so, but that's, I mean, like you said, like I think if you're joining a blind group and you're saying I'm new,
Yeah.
I think it's probably fine. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Everyone's
Maybe
gonna
people will be
understand.
assholes. There's always be assholes everywhere.
Yes.
But
But
but we'll
that's the
see.
thing is about that sort of content. It doesn't really attract assholes. Like
Yeah.
the real assholes are the power gamers who are constantly parsing and trying to parse 100 and do the
Yeah.
most damage and be the best whatever. And they're not really interested, I don't think, in doing something with an artificial challenge applied.
Yeah, yeah. It is a lot. I mean, I do this with 11 too, where like, when you download Horizon, there's all these plugins and stuff that you can use. And I'm like, turn it all off. 640 by 480 square block. I don't know the timers or anything. I see the chat log that says paralyzed landed. I'll see it when it wears off, maybe.
Excellent. Yeah.
So so these are decisions I've made in other games to find ways that I can enjoy them in a different way, kind of thing, right? Um, and how important that is to 11's a whole other thing. And now I'm just stubborn. I'm like, well, I've been doing this the whole time, so guess we'll just stick with it.
I can't stop now.
Yeah, but I do think I have a willingness to like change how I play a game, so that I think it is good for me to at least try that thing.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I think I can get in this mindset of like, well, the game was designed this way, so it should work. But I think that's kind of these days I feel like I'm not a big believer in that anymore, because it's like if I can change one setting in the option menu to make something better,
Yeah.
I'll go for it. For example, visual effects in Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh yeah.
I keep leaving them on. They need to go off. I can't see
Yeah,
anything.
it's really got to
and
turn
there's
them off.
and it's like me just being stubborn for no reason. And I turned them down to there's like 3 levels. There's max, light,
Yeah.
and none. So I moved it down to light. We'll see how it
Yes.
goes. But
Yeah, I think I have all of them off.
things like that, I think at the end of the day, what's important is my experience with that game. And I don't mind telling somebody, hey, this game's like a nightmare to read, but if one neat trick fixes it, right? I think that's something that I need to be open to with 14 at the very least. Um, I think one other thing I was looking at, you mentioned crafting. When I think about the value of crafting in 11, it's very much the excitement of getting random garbage and being able to put it together. That does not mean that's an easy process. A lot of 11 is if you want to craft anything, congratulations, you got to skill up. Like one of the earliest items you get in the game in bulk is like a level 56 Centhum 1 craft. And it's like,
That
it took me over a
infuriates me.
year to get there to do that. So that is, I'm just letting you know that's like what draws me to crafting in 11. That doesn't mean that 14 has to do that, but I'd be curious to know, thinking about that kind of value, what do you think is the value of crafting in 14? Because I often get told the market doesn't matter, guild doesn't matter.
Oh yeah,
Why
that's
do
true.
this?
I mostly so you can repair your own gear in the field. I think to me that's the
Mm,
advantage because your gear does degrade in 14, and when it hits 0, it doesn't break. It's just you got to repair it to get the stat bonuses from it again. And if you've leveled your crafts specifically, depending on what you're repairing, you can do it all yourself out in the field. Um, yeah, it's also useful for it is useful for making money, but making money is not really important unless you're doing end game stuff and you need to spend money on potions or food, or you can make them yourself with your craft. Or also crafting glam. There are high level pieces of attire or weapons that are cosmetic that you can only get from high level crafts or
mm,
buy off the auction house, but they're expensive because they're high level crafts. That's where a lot of 14's end game is. Like everyone calls glam the end game, and it kind of is because all the best costumes, all the best weapons, you either have to get through fights or through very expensive crafting.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't mind that.
Hmm. So, so primarily repairing your gear. I know you can repair your gear in NPCs in town, but I imagine you have to warp back,
Yeah, and it costs
repair,
money. When
warp
you
back
repair it
out.
yourself, it just costs chunks of dark matter, which are almost free, which you can pick up
Oh,
here and
okay,
there.
gotcha. Okay,
Can you hear the construction outside? It's awful.
it's fine.
Good.
We'll
It's
it's
driving me
part of the
crazy.
charm. I don't know what the show is, and it's not going to be informal. So
Good. Oh.
I feel like there's been like multiple times where I'll just like say a bunch of stuff and say, "Are you good?" And you're like, "Yeah." Like, all right, next thing. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, if I don't particularly disagree with what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's
yeah.
roll with it.
Um. Okay. So I'm trying to think if there's like anything that would like I think help me in getting back to this game right now. I think the big things are right now is play the story in small bursts.
Yes.
Um I made a list of content that I think I have access to.
Okay.
So it's like Blue Mage, Hunting Log, Adventure Squadrons, Hunts, Crafting, Gathering. I have something in here called quotes collectible system. I don't know what that is.
Oh,
Um
that's a kind of crafting.
okay, gotcha.
And yeah,
Frontline.
and gathering, I guess. Yeah, crafting and gathering is very chill. I like gathering a lot.
Yeah.
It's
I
very
like
low
gathering a
stress.
lot. this is me doing my fucking 1.0 brain. I like gathering a lot in 1.0 because there's like a little mini game you played with it, and you had to like
Oh,
choose where you cut in the wood. Like there's
oh
a
my
gold
God.
saucer mini game based off of it.
Oh boy.
And one time when I came back, I just played that game for a while. I was like, yeah, I love this system. It was way too intense for what it was asking you to do. But back when it was intended that you'd be able to beat the game as a gatherer or a crafter, I
Oh
think having
yeah.
complexity to those systems made sense. That's another one
Wow.
of the things that I appreciate about 1.0 as well. Actually saw somebody, it was like, I was reading a Destructoid article because I looked up how do you have fun playing Final Fantasy XIV, which most of the responses I would say were very poor Reddit responses
Yeah.
of just like, stop playing the game. Kind of thing.
Yeah,
Which,
that's
for most normal people, reasonable. For somebody who communicates about video games as like a passion, that's not a great answer for me. Um,
that's a very typical Reddit non-answer.
yeah, yeah. But one thing I saw was a Destructoid post that said, think of Final Fantasy XIV as a visual novel.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if I will ever do that. But they mentioned they're like, oh, in 1.0 you could craft to beat the game still. I wish that was in the game, basically what they said. But but yeah, leveling jobs. Like I have stopped trying to change jobs. I leveled a bunch of different jobs hoping to find something, and everyone seems to say you're not getting high enough level for it to matter, basically. So
Yeah.
I'm basically just playing Paladin until I see something. Like, I don't mind changing off Paladin after I say there's something to this game that I'm seeing now, if that makes sense. I think as much as I continue to switch jobs, I'm not going to find the core of the game
Yeah.
changing jobs. So I'm going to play Paladin for now because that's the highest level I got. Just going to push
Sure.
through, kind of thing. Um, and then I have Frontlines, Chocobo Racing, Treasure Hunt, but I think I did a lot of that on 1.0. I did not like it. Or not 1.0, 2.0. Something called Lord of Vermilion,
Oh yeah,
which I
that's a
think is
gold
like
saucer
a
game. I don't
gold
think I ever got
saucer.
real deep into that.
Yeah. Triple Triad, Deep Dungeon, and Sightseeing Log.
Yeah,
Um,
sightseeing log is fun.
in reading all that, I know this is going to probably give me an answer that I probably am going to be like, okay, that's not great, but it's fine. Do any of these systems like feed into anything at any point, or is it just kind of you can do them if you want?
Oh boy.
Um, because
It's
I think
mostly
this is
just
like,
it
I was gonna say, this is like where my 11 brain probably is coming in and distracting me. It's just like, oh, what value do I get out of doing this, right?
yeah.
Which 11 I think has a lot of little things here and there for that, but it's not, you know, it's not important here. But I think that is like what my brain is looking for, and I don't think that's what I need to be looking for in this content. Um,
There are certain things that encompass the entire experience. There's not a lot of them, but I think there's a specific mount you can only get by acquiring every triple triad card.
mm,
And
that's like a glamour thing, right? Kind of fits
it's
into
a
the,
yeah, mounts are just another thing to collect, but
yeah,
I kind of like doing that. There's there's certain cards you can only get through different gameplay modes. There's certain cards you have to get from a boss or from a dungeon or from this content or this content or this content, and that causes people to branch out into these other kinds of things. But I don't know. Other than that, I don't think there's a lot of crossover. They're just fun things to do. I think that, they all give. I know the sightseeing log gives you experience points as well. Not a huge amount, but it's something.
yeah, yeah. Just kind of like, hey, it's here, but you aren't going to level a whole job on your sightseeing log, basically, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Blue Mage seems the most interesting,
Oh yeah.
but I kind of got some advice from a friend that I think might have been, I don't want to say bad advice because I think they came from a good place. I'm not saying it was a bad choice, but they were like, I was trying to understand how to find spells, and then they were like, well, you don't know the world very well, so she'd look at the wiki, and then what that turned into was me just following the wiki to find each monster, which is basically just
Yeah.
me traveling around. It's like I don't actually like this that much. Some of this stuff is going to be me. I have this issue with 11 as well, where like, how much do I want to look on a wiki, and how much do I want to find on my own? Basically,
Yeah.
I assume most of it, everything in 14 is just kind of thrown in front of you. Um, that's my impression of it. Like everything seems to be of like findable in a menu somewhere. They'll point you to a thing. I
More or
assume the sightseeing
less.
log may not be that because I think you read a description, right? Um, so I think that's like one thing I have to make sure is like I don't engage in the wiki in a way that like undermines the fun. because in 11 I have like enough knowledge to know this is the kind of quest where trying to find the one little spot on the map is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Um, and I can appreciate that and move on with my life kind of thing. But I would never look at a guide in Final Fantasy 11 that's like, here's how you level a craft or here's how you equip your ninja. I don't want to see
Oh
those.
wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, because like I just like I don't know if you have this, but like sometimes I'll be stuck awake at 1 a.m. in the morning and I'll be thinking about Warrior and I'll be like, what does this piece work with Warrior? And I gotta go pull up the wiki and be like, oh, they do wear it. And then I have to ask myself, in the case of Horizon, is this in the game? Because they have a bunch of cut content, right? And
Yeah.
so like I have these like moments of like interest. I think you mentioned like looking up, like thinking about builds outside of
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that. So I think there's like a pleasure I get out of doing that, but I don't think that's going to be a part of 14 in any meaningful way because everything just seems kind of fed to you as needed. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like I don't think there's anything I should be looking for to like think about, if that makes sense. It's just kind of get the next thing and then leave it at that. And I guess maybe the thing for this would be like if I do blind runs, if we fail, then that's when
Hmm.
we kind of take a step back and think about it. Because that's kind of like something that happens when we play like EDF in my other group. We fail a mission for 2 hours and it's like, fuck. And then
Yeah.
we all go away for 3 days and then come back and everyone has their idea of like what weapon can do this or something like that. So that might be what I get out of that in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, that might be it. I think that I don't know if there's anything else really I can do other than just keep it short sessions, play other stuff in the game, and if I don't like it, just don't play 14 and just keep moving forward on the story.
Yeah.
Because end game seems like where a lot of the appeal is. Everyone tells me you got to get to this point before things matter, which I think I don't know. I don't want to say it's like I would phrase it as that seems like a sad statement. I don't know if that's a really sad statement
I
where it's
think
like the game
yeah.
doesn't get good until 200 hours and I'm like that doesn't feel
Well, I think a lot of
satisfying.
this I
But
think it's a self-fulfilling sadness. I think a lot of this
yeah.
is it's a very difficult thing to add. This is why I don't ask people for recommendations because I get them and then 100% of the time I'm disappointed. I
Mm,
have to find things out on my own or I do not enjoy them. If someone
yeah.
recommends me a movie or a band or anything, even if it's right up my alley, I will not like it because it came from someone else and there's no sense of discovery. I feel like I don't have a lot of advice here because if someone were to tell me these are the 5 most fun things about this game, I would get to them and be like this sucks
Yeah.
because someone else told me they were fun. Well, you don't have my idea of fun and I don't have your idea of fun. Holy shit, that's loud. I'm glad you can't hear that. That's
No, I
not my
can't.
idea of fun. Oh god damn it.
It's fine.
Jesus. Okay. That's not fun.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
will say I'm
mm,
somebody who typically does not take a lot of recommendations.
yeah.
And I think maybe one of the things that's hard with Final Fantasy 14 is every time I like pitch a way that I could interact with it, I feel like I get shot down of just like, no, you can't do that. Which I will say this is a problem in Horizon sometimes too, where some people will say you can't do that. And then when I do it, I'm like, I absolutely can do this. It's not a problem, right?
I
Like,
think what you need to do
so
is cut out the middleman and don't ask somebody, "What if I did this and had fun?" Just do it and have fun. You don't need anybody else's approval to have fun.
I think, well, this is where I think the problem is that like, because I'm looking at it in the lens of an MMORPG, what I get told a lot of times, like, you'll be a griefer, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've
So it's
seen
like, I'm going to play
people
the game in this way and it's going to be disapproved of to play the game that way.
well, I mean, everybody is expected to do the bare minimum of their job, which is do
Yeah.
rotation and dodge attacks. Anything else you do is fine. Like I've seen people try to go jazz with their rotations, and like you shouldn't do that. It just makes the battle take longer, and you're wasting everybody's time. But like,
Exactly. That kind of thing of just like, if
yeah,
you try to do something outside the realm of this prescribed way of having the most enjoyment out of this game, from a combat perspective at least,
look,
it seems like you will be looked down upon for that.
yes, well, yeah, because that's not. it's not enjoyment related. That's how the game works. That's like if I'm going to go online and play fighting games with people, but to make it fun, I'm going to do it on a dial-up connection that sucks because I think that's interesting. And maybe you do have fun with that.
Mm.
Or something without rollback netcode. Let's make it as clunky as possible. That could be fun for you. It is actively disrespecting the other person's time. You're getting different experiences because you're looking for different things. I think there is a point at which you do have to sit back and be like, the way that I want to have fun with this is not what this is built for, and I am actively interfering on other people's experience.
Yeah. Which I think is where we come to the minimum idle level stuff, the blind stuff, all
Yes.
that stuff, which I think that is the wiggle room I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like when you mentioned earlier of like, you need to do the baseline, like I would not play Ranger in Final Fantasy XI and say, I'm going to make a melee build Ranger and go
Right.
melee. Like
Yeah.
maybe as a kid, I would have done that. But as an
Yeah.
adult, I would look at what the job is doing and say, and again, this is a different style game. So I'm not saying this applies one to one, but I would look at that, what the job is doing and saying, I want to do this, right? Like, there are people in Horizon who will say, the only way you can play this job if you spend 10 million gil. You can only play Ranger if you shoot silver bullets, which I don't think that's true. Like you can
No.
use much more affordable ammo and you will do not only great because Rangers are just way overpowered, at least in old school 11. But you will do perfectly fine in that regard. Like, and it's like it works. And you can make that work however you want to make it work, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
That's
so like
that's
I
kind
think what
of
I'm looking for is like what is my wiggle room? Because I'll have like something one conversation I had with my friend. There's like something with casting called like slide casting.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was talking to someone about it and they said this is an essential thing for you to learn. You have to know this. And I'm like, well, what does
Mm,
that mean exactly? Because to me, essential means the game is designed for slide casting to be used, or else you will be punished for not using it. Or is it a way to optimize to the point that it goes beyond what the game is expecting? Does that make sense?
it does. And I think slide casting is only really important if you're doing high-end content. You don't need to worry about that for just normally playing the game.
Does it feel like high end content's designed to accommodate for slide casting? Like, does it feel like they are
Yeah.
designing the encounters saying you are going to use this weird, what
It's
feels like a little like
this
wave
is
dash kind of exploit to
yeah.
some extent?
This
But
is interesting. It's hard for me to say because my ping here in Japan is so bad that I have to slide cast when I use
yeah, true.
samurai abilities. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm pretty sure that if you have like a perfect ping, you might not have to slide cast or maybe not
Yeah.
as much, but I don't know. It's a good question.
And I think maybe this comes back to what I was saying earlier about not enjoying something for not being perfect,
Yeah.
because it makes me feel like I feel like I see, and this is true for me, just like from a general thing, I can make the best video. Everyone's like, "Oh, so good," and then I'll sit there and like criticize every part of it, right? Like
Oh yeah.
that's just I think to some extent how creators work.
Yeah.
I might have a more like this is something that's come up in therapy. I might have a more intense version of that to some extent, um, but like so I wonder if that's kind of wrapping into there when you say you need to be optimal in the end game content, where it sounds like people are saying this is where the mechanics matter, this is where the gameplay matters,
Yeah.
and it sounds like people are saying you need to be absolutely perfect no matter what. Um, that's what it comes off to me as,
Um
and
I,
I don't think that's true, but I feel
no.
like that's how people talk about it, and so it's a little hard for me to like wrestle with that.
It's if we're talking about high-end content in 14, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be competent at your job and you have to take the time to gear yourself up. And that's
Yeah,
like nobody's perfect. The entire point of learning these fights is that you and the group are going to fuck up again and again and again. Nobody does it right on
yeah,
the first try. You are there to practice. It's impossible to do these fights on the first try. That's the point. There's like perfect play doesn't exist at that stage yet.
yeah.
As long as you know your job and you go in with an attitude that you're willing to learn, you're fine. You're going to get everything out of it.
Okay. I'll think about it. It's a ways off.
Oh yeah.
So I don't intend to rush this through to try
No,
to get
yeah,
there. I'm gonna guess I'm probably gonna be getting to Dawn Trail by whenever the next expansion's like announced at the very least.
yeah. What's the next one?
So
Boytown. I don't know what it's called.
boy,
Yeah,
I was telling someone I was like, I wouldn't like I look like I mentioned to the start. One of the reasons I like about Final Fantasy is that like they all feel different, which has been one of the biggest problems with me with Final Fantasy since 2013 or however long it is because we had
yeah.
Final Fantasy 13. Final Fantasy 14, I kind of view as like a weird halfsies when it comes to the content I've experienced. I know things go elsewhere, but it was built heavily on 11, right? Like the
Oh yeah.
races, all that stuff. I mean, there's literally like when I was reading the interviews, there's literally a point in time where they're like, we want you to be able to go into your mock house in Final Fantasy 11 and leave the mock house and be in Final Fantasy 14. That seems like a crazy thing that
Well,
they wanted to try, but
there
I,
is. Yeah.
well, I guess what I'm just saying is that the world is very similar to 11, so it doesn't stand as much on its own, but it's a circumstance kind of thing. I don't think it's really
I I
current
can't.
11's fault or 14's
I
fault. So,
I don't know if this has been 100% confirmed or not, but there may be an in-story reason for that, which I can't explain at the moment.
which is fine. I kind of feel like if they're going to like actually connect it to 11 in some ways,
Yeah.
I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
Um, which is okay. I know there's like Juno content. I was talking to my friend about this because he was like sending me pictures of the Final Fantasy 14 raid. I know you were talking about other people
Yeah.
were sending you
It's
stuff,
it's
and
fun, yeah.
I feel like it's hard for me to get like excited about it because like especially because I'm playing Horizon 11 right now. I'm in that moment already, and so like to show me another version of it, it's just kind of like okay. But I also am very I don't and maybe this gets back to like the nostalgia thing. I don't really want to revisit games that much very often. 11
Mhm.
was I think a unique case because it was such this weird thing in my head that I didn't understand. Um So like when I think about Final Fantasy 14 being this like kind of like was it theme park, Final Fantasy theme park,
Yeah.
and it pulling from games, it sounds like, but every time I look at 14, I don't really feel like I see this super well.
Yeah,
But
well,
it sounds
that's
like it pulls stuff from other games, and I'm just like, I don't really care about that. But I don't feel like 14 defined like you don't go and it's like it's Cecil from Final Fantasy
yeah,
4. I don't feel like they do that.
that's Kingdom
Um
Hearts. Yeah, this is something that
yeah.
gets overblown by critics. People are like, "Yeah, it takes from other Final Fantasies. I wanna play something original." And this is usually in defense of FF11, which, like FF11 didn't invent Shiva and Titan and all that shit,
Oh yeah, no.
but, like, the stuff that FF14 does that's original is great, and the stuff that it borrows from other Final Fantasies is stuff that every fucking Final Fantasy borrows anyway. The theme
Yeah.
park analogy is more due to the idea of putting them all in the context of these dungeons or these post-game scenes. A lot of that content too is side content that's not part of the main story. It's just kinda
Yeah.
there for funsies once you've done the main story. It's a lot of the game's original story and characters is exemplary, and that gets overlooked because people are like, "Oh, I recognize this character name, which means it's old shit." No, it's not your old shit. There, I said it. Steve. Alright, I'm done.
Yeah, it's no problem. I think the thing, and I think I agree with you that like I think 14 is original where it matters is my impression
Yes.
from when I look at it. I think, and I don't really blame it too much for the world being the same because I think that's like a relic from a very different time of
Yeah.
trying to transfer user base and all that weird stuff.
Like, it's
So I don't
you
blame it for that, but I do think the point I was trying to get to with Final Fantasy was what Final Fantasy was for like over 10 years was 13's world, 14's world, and 15's. And that's all it's been. Versus like when I think about, you know, the rapid pace of which Final Fantasy evolved back when that you could do that with development times, that was when a lot of that like, oh, these unique worlds got kind of instilled in me a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's like this weird thing that's not really a fault of Final Fantasy. I think it's just a fault of development timelines and how all that stuff works. Like, I think 16 looks completely unappealing to me, except for the fact it looks like nothing else Final
Oh,
Fantasy
boy.
does, and that makes me wanna play it.
Yeah,
Because I look at it and I'm just like, I don't like how what I see, but it doesn't look like anything else Final Fantasy's done.
I to make that YouTube video, I needed footage from 16, so I downloaded the
Mhm.
demo off of Steam, and I played it for a while, and I absolutely fell in love with everything about it except the gameplay. Like, everything
Yeah, it's
about it
like the
is
Platinum
is
Games style kinda thing, or
yeah, it's just that's not what I'm into, but, like, at the same time, there's like the voice acting is excellent. Like it's not anime, it's like thespians, which is kind of my,
Mhm.
my thing about FF14 too, is I feel like the voice acting is best when you hire actual actors and not just like anime. Not to
Yeah.
slight anime voice actors, but like I don't want you in my video game. I'd rather have the serious actors who like a lot of the characters do they do work on British TV. They're
Yeah, yeah.
classically trained actors and they make the performance that much better and that makes the story that much better.
For 16, you're saying, or
For
14?
14 and 16.
Okay. I feel like I know voice actors have changed a lot. I feel like my feeling early on was that 14 just kind of sounded like a normal anime kind of voice
They
track.
yes, they did change the
But
voices up at some point. They recast a
um
lot of the characters.
another important thing to though is that like I like the 14 1.0 voice acting, which was like the Castlevania style delivery of
Oh
everything
boy.
is like a stage play and over the
Yeah.
top. I love that kind of
You
stuff.
gotta
I
play to
know
the
nobody else
rafters.
wants it, but I know that's not what it's for. I just think that the voice acting was a little underwhelming and like 2.0, but I also don't think it was bad. It was just kind of normal, if that makes sense.
It was,
Um,
yes, and I think a lot of those characters were recast for Heaven's Ward, or at least, or maybe from 2.5.
yeah, yeah.
And for the better, I feel like a lot of the performances are great. A lot of the characters have become some of my favorite Final Fantasy 14 or Final Fantasy characters in general. I don't know if you remember the Uniqlo series of T-shirts they did for the Final
Mhm.
Fantasy anniversary a couple years ago, or maybe last year. The FF14 shirt was, I think it was 9 of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, the main characters, and they're all memorable. They're all unique. I like the way they interact. I like the way that they're voiced. They feel like relatable characters from a game that I like because guess what? They are.
I'd be curious to know because I mentioned earlier about like not being invested in the story right now. Sometimes this is. Do you know the Xeno series, like Xeno Saga, Xeno
Only
Blade, or anything like that?
Xenogears.
Only Xenogears, yeah.
Yeah.
So you might relate to this. Then I don't know. Um, One thing I feel with that franchise is I want characters to go away forever. Um,
Okay.
I never want to see certain characters again. If anything, I might not want to see entire casts of games again.
Yeah.
But then they bring him back and they're just like, look at it. It's this character. And, for the normal Xeno fan, that's a very exciting moment. I'm just like, oh, yeah, I guess it could be this person.
Yeah.
like, and maybe another example is like Gundam. I watched the original Gundam. I really enjoyed it. And then there's like Gundam Z, and the main character for Gundam's Amuro, and he's
Yeah.
in Gundam Z. And I'm like, I actually don't care about what happens to Amuro. Like, I don't need to know what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true. I may not like that kind of ongoing long storytelling
Yeah.
that just kind of goes forever. I think this is also true for 11, where I very much value that original story, but the rest of it I kind of could do without. It's fine. It's there. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Um, how much do you think your when you say these are some of my favorite Final Fantasy characters are because of the time investment versus any particular like quality, if that makes sense?
I don't think it's very connected to the time investment because the time I spend with the characters is the same that I would spend with an offline Final Fantasy.
Mm.
When I'm doing high-end content, it's not with these characters, it's with other players. My exposure to these characters is just in the cutscenes in which they appear. They're just
I
well
feel
written and
like,
well acted.
but when I play, like if I play Final Fantasy 16, right, assuming I'm on top of it and don't drag my feet,
Yeah.
those characters exist within like a 3 month period of my life if I take my time.
Right.
Final Fantasy 14 exists how many years in your life now, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's like so even though you might see them the same
I
amount,
Yeah, but
you
I mean it's
are
like
it's like ongoing consistent relationship you have with them kind of thing.
yes, but I think most people, myself included, like if I read a series of like 8 fantasy novels, I don't need a new cast every time. I like some of the cast coming back. 14 does that, and not everybody
Mhm.
does come back. Some characters die and they do not come back. Some of
Yeah.
them keep going with you. It's like that. It's a saga more than a story, which yeah, if you're not into that saga style of storytelling, then then yes, I recommend you
Yeah, that
not
might be a
play Final
problem
Fantasy
with them.
14.
You know me. Like I said, if you tell me not to play Final Fantasy XIV, like I'm gonna play
Oh, it's not for you. You should stop right now.
See, you got to do the opposite, where you say it's 100% for you. You're gonna love it. You're like, no, I won't.
Stop
I
playing
won't
right
play
now. This is free advice. Don't pay me for this advice.
But yeah, I think I do sometimes wonder with that stuff where like when people like stretched over the course of time, like how much more of a presence something has somebody in their is in their life, like if that connects with like how much they
I Okay.
enjoy it. I'm not necessarily criticizing it for that, just to be clear.
Yeah.
I
Well,
I
I
was just
mean,
kind of like trying to figure out like
I
if there's a
understand.
difference between those characters versus saying this is like my favorite one because it's just the pure quality of that character, if that makes sense.
Yes. I understand this feeling because I am burnt out on the idea of cinematic universes and the idea that every movie has to connect with every other and we need to keep bringing back these
Yes.
characters. I am burnt out on that because more and more when these characters come back, it's for no good reason other than, hey, look, everybody, which is not
Yeah.
enough. 14 doesn't do that. If a character comes back, it is for a reason. They have a function to play. There's a guy who can talk to dragons. He's buddy buddy with dragons. That's what he does. There's you got a character who has this ability. This guy, he just loves to fuck with crystals. We need crystal guy. Everybody does something, has a function that they are called in. Sometimes they don't even show up into an expansion until like hours in because, oh right, we need this thing. Get what's his name on the horn. Get him over here. People show
Do you mind
up
if I
when
challenge you though on that?
yes, you go for it.
Do you think a DC or Marvel fan would feel that way about a character showing up? Where they say, "Oh, they need to be here because there's a story reason they need to fill this role."
That I don't know. I think it's possible. I think honestly, I
Because they
think
have
that
like a lifelong investment in Spider-Man or whatever. He shows up.
yes.
He's like,
Yeah,
"Yo, I'm
I feel
Spidey."
like
But they can appreciate the presence of Spider-Man, if that makes sense.
yes. I feel like most people are on oh my god. I feel like most people are
The
uncritical in
dragons.
yeah,
14 has dragons, right?
dragons are back. Dragons are back, baby.
I'm playing Heavensward, so there's still dragons right now.
I feel like most people are uncritical in this regard because they just wag their tail when they see Spider-Man. They're just happy to see the face that they know. And to an extent, I am too. But when I play 14, I know that it is going to be followed by a good reason for being here and not just Spider-Man has to be in this movie because it's called Spider-Man colon the Boner Project or whatever the fuck. I know that a character is here with purpose and I like to see them. It's a nice combination of the two.
I know you say that with like confidence.
Yes.
I do not have the information to challenge that. I do think there's probably some like there would be. I would love to know if a Spider-Man fan or something like that feels that way, because I feel like we're talking like I don't care about that stuff, like
Yeah.
Marvel, DC, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it sounds like I'm guessing you maybe watched them, but you don't like you probably don't have like an investment in it.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a world where if I suddenly had somebody that I could bring in on the call right now, you want
I
to call a friend?
I think it's
but
I think it's a natural thing to want to see somebody that we haven't seen in a while. I think it's
sure.
normal to want to experience the dynamic that a specific character can introduce to a scene is important. And I think if you are keeping characters around just to be recognizable faces, like yeah, that is pointless. If a game brings back a character just, to say, "Hey everyone, look, who gives a shit?" But if it's in the service of a character moment or to further the plot, that I think is fine. That's great. That's why I like to see them. They brought a character back at the beginning of the previous expansion and introduced a character wrinkle, a tiny little thing about the character that made me glad he was back. Because up to that point, I was like, oh yeah, I guess it would make sense that he's here. And then they added this little detail to his character that made me think, okay, that was worth it. I'm really glad he's here with us because that was a cute little scene. This is cute information we're now getting. It's a chance to flesh out some characters a little bit more. I think it's normal to want to see characters that you like again. And I think if you don't want characters to stick around that long, I would read short stories. I don't know. I don't have advice for that.
Essentially, that's what I have shifted to. Is like if I want to, my response to like the Xeno games was just like I don't need to play the series anymore. I'm gonna go play other RPGs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play White Knight Chronicles instead, kind of thing. And then now like I might play White Knight Chronicles too, but I don't really know. And I do think that is something I can appreciate, but it does I think I have weird standards of like what's an exciting thing to see, which I
Yeah.
think is different. Where it's like the two most excited times I've ever been for game announcements was Phantom Dust 2. I've
Okay.
never played Phantom Dust 1, but when they came on stage with such confidence at
Yeah.
that Xbox event and
Oh
said,
boy.
"Everyone, Phantom Dust 2," I could have never imagined that moment in my life that that would have happened. And so it's like so exciting for me because I don't expect it, right? It's
Yeah.
like I expect Kratos or Master Chief to come back, but Phantom Dust 2 and to give it like prime time, stage time at an Xbox reveal event. What are you doing? And they canceled the game. It's
Oh.
fine. I don't care. I just that was that moment. And the other one was Dragon Quest Champions, where I was watching the stream for that, and then I'm like realizing this is a Dragon Quest Battle Royale game. This is crazy. And it was no one should have made that video game, but I was amazed by it being made. And so like I am just in it, like I could not think about anything but Dragon Quest Champions for the next like week. And I did play the beta and it was not particularly good. But
Oh
like I'm
no.
so glad it exists. I don't care that it wasn't good. I just wanted it to exist, right? I think sometimes so I think those moments are there. Maybe a more related one would be like Final Fantasy VII. I haven't played the remake. I'm not that interested in playing the remake actually.
Yeah, that's
I've
just like 16. It's not my kind of game.
I would much rather gamble on me playing 16 and loving that world for what it is versus
Yeah.
playing 7 and knowing what the world's going to be. I always will take the higher gamble in most cases. Of just like I could love this so much more than seeing Cloud again yet
Yeah.
again. But in the DLC for it, they had Deep Ground from Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus.
Oh boy.
Just like god damn it. I love Dirge of Cerberus. and the fact they brought back Deep Ground as a story point is just like, oh man, I am excited for that. But whenever they roll out Shantoto, or like I think they brought Preach back for 14. I'm just like, those are the ones you'd bring back. And so I'm just kind of like, it's okay, kind of thing. But I love a little bit of novelty, I think,
Yeah.
is the big thing. And I also love normal people. So when a normal character returns as well, like the two little mining guys. So this is a 14 example. The two little mining guys from 1.0,
Yeah.
they sometimes show up the story in 2.0, and I'm like, yeah, hey guys. And that's kind of just how I feel about them. I don't actually remember anything about them, but it's like it's just kind of nice to see them sometimes. And they're so inconsequential to the story that it's just kind of weird that they show back up. Versus like a main character, I think I don't feel the same thing as much. So
Yeah.
it's a very me thing though. And I think this might get back to what I was saying earlier about caring more about the small stories in 14 and
Yeah.
the ham in 14.
Oh
Those are the
yeah.
two things that last I said were the things I liked most about it. And I'm guessing at the time as well, like my 2.0 experience kind of cut off with 2.55. And that might be why I kind of dropped off with the main narrative of just like, I kind of saw the story. And then so it's like, now it's new story. And it's like, oh, uh, I've already saw the story though, kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's
but
well,
that's
it's
not anything about the game itself. That's just me, a mindset kind of thing.
yeah.
I may have cut it off and said that is Final Fantasy 14 story. Congratulations, it's done. And then it's like, here's the sequel. And I'm like, I didn't ask for a sequel. What are you doing with this? I didn't buy this game. What? Um, so yeah. Okay. Well, Alex,
Hi.
if you had to sum up what you think after today's call, what would you say? What do you think? Did you learn anything about me and my experience with 14? Do you have hope? Do you think I'm setting myself up for failure?
I'm gonna take those in order. Yes, no, and yes.
I
Ne-
think I don't know how much you know about me. I am very flexible in a lot of ways. And
yeah.
the reason I bring this to you is because this is not normal for me.
Okay.
This is a very rare thing. I view this as a undesirable trait that I do
Yeah.
not want to be a part of me. And 14 is maybe the most extreme version of this,
hmm
which is all the more reason why I think I need to sit down and play it. Um,
Well, I mean, knowing that
I know
we
it's a very aggressive personal approach to 14, but and I know that's not like just hey, do you want to enjoy a video game? Because like this is like a almost like wellness challenge, if this makes sense. It's like somebody
it's
trying to get over their fear of clowns, kind of thing.
well, It's like someone who hates clowns playing a clown game and then just getting very frustrated that they're not enjoying it and looking for the non-clown mode when there isn't a non-clown mode. It's Clown World. You've signed up to play Clown World.
I think the way I would present it using the clown analogy is I am looking for the right kind of clown for me in Clown World.
Yeah, but that's like somebody with a peanut allergy looking for the right kind of peanut.
Right kind of nut, I would say.
Okay. I don't
There
know.
are nuts I can consume that are fine, that are not peanuts.
I guess.
But I'm not saying that I can't enjoy a nut. If that makes sense. I feel like that's saying if I don't enjoy peanuts, I can't enjoy any nut.
All right. Please, legumes.
I think it'll be okay.
All right.
I know you're doubting me.
Well, I do know.
The only time this has failed is Zensus for the Nintendo DS.
What the hell?
Which is a relaxation puzzle game that I played and suffered through for probably about 30 hours.
Oh,
And I
geez.
could not land on what was good about it or why it was ever good.
Yeah.
All the other reviews of the game said it was bad, don't get me wrong. But I wanted to like Zensus and I tried very hard. I recently appreciated Pachinko as well.
Oh, wow.
I don't like Pachinko, but I think there's some interesting things about Pachinko.
Yeah.
And I think that's the space I want to be with 14 is either liking it or it's Pachinko and I don't have to like it, but I appreciate it for being Pachinko. So
Okay. I think that your tastes are capricious, and it's been very interesting to be involved in this process taking a look at FFs 11 and 14. I will also say I think we do share a common trait, and that is don't recommend games to us because we'll hate them.
I mostly agree with you. I have only known one game that two games I have been recommended to, and it's actually both from the same person.
Okay.
I think most people don't understand what makes a game good for me.
Yeah.
There's maybe only one person I can think of that does. So people will deliver a game to me and say, "You'll like this, right?" And I'll look at it and be like, "No, what about this?" And it's very usually like very
Yeah.
surface level things of like, it's the aesthetic, it's a particular setting, here's this genre, and it's like, I think you're missing something. But I will say this is 100% a problem with me, is that like I don't know how to communicate what I like about games sometimes. I can communicate what I like about individual games, I think, very well, but the overarching narrative about what I like about video games is challenging to communicate
Yeah.
sometimes. Because, like, to me, Super Mario Brothers, like Super Mario World, not World, Game Boy,
Land.
Land, Super Mario Land, and some random obscure Japanese game have a lot more in common to me than a lot of like other Mario games to other Mario games. And so like to me, it's a part of the same conversation of like Land does a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And not in the way of like it's got a shooter thing. It's more about how the difficulty progresses. It's a very weird difficulty curve that I think comes from just the Game Boy's nature. Um, but like I appreciate that, and like to me, that's like in the same part of like a lot of these other weird topics that I'm in.
No,
But I
I
know that's
get
like a
that.
very vague statement, but it's
I
it's
get
hard
that
to communicate
entirely.
that to people though. So
I think that our tastes specifically are very, very subjective. And when people recommend things, they recommend them in the context of what other people thought of it and not
yeah.
necessarily like my sister, like back when Game of Thrones was new, my sister was like, "You're going to love this show, Game of Thrones. It's just like Lord of the Rings." And then I watched 2 episodes and I'm like, "You don't know anything about Lord of the Rings or me," it turns out. It was,
my stepmom was the same way. You'll love this. I'm like, why?
I sure didn't.
um, so I'm thinking at this point, what I'll probably do is I will resubscribe for a month,
Oh boy.
just kind of tackle it, and see where I'm at, and then I assume maybe just checking in maybe every expansion or so and just being
Yeah.
like, hey, I imagine the episodes will be shorter than this. And being like, here's what I may have learned or learned as long as you're interested in it. You don't have to
Absolutely.
join me this
I
whole
will
way through.
perform wellness checks. Yes.
Um, and also I think in regards to like the story, um, if I'm invested in the story in a meaningful way, I think I'd be happy to talk with you about that. I'm a little weird about talking with story about story in games because I think a lot of the surface level story discussions are kind of a little
A little
because it just kind of
meaningless,
becomes
yeah.
like, hey, let's talk about spoiler that happened. And it's hard to find the right way
Yeah,
to talk
it's
about a story for
I
me.
would
Like I can do
rather
it in scripted content very well, but off the cuff, it's a little hard for me. So
I think it's better to treat a story like this as a complete idea once it's finished rather than a serialized sequence of events. Better to just absorb the entire thing and then let's talk about it.
gotcha. Obviously, we don't have to like plan on this per se, but like, do you think it's pretty reasonable? I'm at the part where basically Stola just came back. It's a little bit after that.
Yeah.
So I know you probably have no idea where that is.
Do
But I
you?
think it's
Well,
towards the end of the Heaven's Word initial expansion, and then there's like content that comes afterwards of that.
oh, is that at
Do
the
you
end of
think it?
that? Okay, yeah.
I think so. I don't know. I've talked to people, and that seems to be you're getting there. Basically, is what I
Okay. What's the
seem
last
to
thing that
getting.
happened with Iceheart?
I haven't seen Ice Heart since I came back.
Oh, I think
I think
you're at the beginning of Heaven's Ward.
well, Ice Heart was a long time ago.
Oh, okay, wait.
In my brain, she was a long time ago.
Okay.
I think she because Shiva happened. I think she's related to that. I don't remember. It's been so
Have
long,
you
but
been
she's been gone.
okay? Have you been to Ozis Law?
I don't know what a Ossus lasagna is.
Excellent. Yeah, Lasagna Town. Have you been to Lasagna Town?
There's one town I was in that was like a bunch of ruins and goblins are in it.
Detroit. I don't know. I don't know.
Anyways, it's been so long, so and like I don't really have any real grasp of what's happening narratively. I've
Okay.
gotten little pieces here and there, so it's probably gonna be hard for me to like narrow it down. But I assume maybe I'll check in with you once I finish up the Heaven's Word like the patch content, and then if it makes sense, we can talk then. If not, maybe you just check back in for Stormblood and
Yeah.
see where we're at with that. I have no idea how long that will take,
Yeah.
because it depends on how fast I move and stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But well, thanks for coming. Thank you again. I hope this was like an interesting conversation. It is
Yes.
me very much putting like a side of me that I don't like out in front of somebody. So like I appreciate you putting up with that.
I'm always
Because I
happy to
was a
talk
little
FFs 11 and 14.
did you want to plug anything at the end of this show? You made a video.
I'd love to. Yes. I just put up a YouTube video called Relics and Rockstars, an appreciation of Final Fantasy 11 and 14. I like both games very much, as you can tell, and I still got a lot of comments from FF11 and 14 fans saying of their respective games, don't you think you're being a little hard on the game? It's an opinion piece. Thank you for watching, but go fuck yourself. It's an opinion piece. Please understand that it's subjective and not everything has to respect your opinion. Not you.
I will say I agree with pretty much everything you said in there. The one thing that stood out to me, and this is I have a really weird relationship, as you may know, with nostalgia, where I find nostalgia is like a weird block point for like how we talk about things. Where it's like
Yeah.
I'm just not going to elaborate on this further. I'm just going to say childhood. It's like okay, but I don't think you did that. I think you were just kind of referencing stuff you mentioned earlier. Anyways,
Yeah.
finish your flow.
Please check out the video. I have a bunch of other videos on my channel as well about old games or new games that try to be like old games. I also do a podcast with my good friend Ray Barnholt called No More Whoppers. We also launched a new show recently called Draw Game, the anime world of video games, where we watch anime based on video games and then process the experience with each other. You can find more information at pitui.org. That's pitohui.org. That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Can I say one thing? I don't know if this is still going on though. I guess in the context of this show, it might actually your Dragon Quest series might actually be kind of relevant. You were doing some like Patreon Dragon Quest show.
Yeah, I have a Patreon only podcast called 10 in 10 where I play Dragon Quest 10 and translate it on the fly while I'm playing it, which is very fun.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was great. I'm looking forward to more.
Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I will say, since this video, I have played quite a bit of Final Fantasy XIV, and I think generally things are going good right now. I do think there's a lot of questions I have, and a lot of things that I still am disappointed by with the game. but I've made a lot of like really good progress. So I think when we come back and talk again, it will be for the better. When I was editing this, I pretty much was crafting the entire time in 14. So I think there's positivity's coming in the future. If you're like, Ben, you were so frustrating this episode because you just talked in circles, just know it seems like things are changing for the better in ways that they previously have not been. So anyways, I'm not quite sure when the next thing will be. I just finished at this point the expansion that I was on, so I'm still working through some stuff. I think there's some, I may or may not do the whole like expansion cut thing, or I might just wait until I feel like I have enough material and then check to be like, Alex, you good to talk again? And if he's good to talk again, we'll talk again. So anyways, no real planned update though, so I would say maybe expect at least a month. That's the only thing I can say. So anyways, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for so much for like listening to me talk about something that's like a really hard and annoying topic for me to talk about. And I hope that it's like something you can like appreciate that I am trying to kind of like address and I don't know if fix is the right word, but respect at the very least, because I think there's a lot of things about this that I'm not a huge fan of how I talked about in the video. But that was the point. The point was to say what I thought. Now it's time to change it for the better. Goodbye.